Chapter 516. Whoosh! Her slender palm carried an extremely terrifying power. Amidst the sharp sound of a sonic boom, she ruthlessly pressed her palm against Noah's chest without hesitation. Noah, who had already fought with Luo Hao before, knew that even if he used the incarnation of the Dragon Man and had a body comparable to that of a giant dragon, his own strength was still no match for the authority of Luo Hao's Vajra Vigor technique. That should be the same as the incarnation of the giant, which could bring the user a terrifying and monstrous strength, right? Although it was not as exaggerated as the incarnation of the giant, Luo Hao's Vajra Vigor technique was obviously very terrifying. That monstrous strength, if it hit a building, it would probably shatter the entire building. The main thing that the incarnation of the Dragon Man strengthened was not the arm strength, but the physique close combat, and the ability to slay dragons. It was simply no match for the Vajra Vigor technique, which only strengthened the arm strength. After all, the Dragon Man incarnation could only show its horror when dealing with dragon-type creatures. This made Noah once think of changing to the incarnation of the giant, but he immediately gave up on that idea. If Noah used the incarnation of the giant, then the giant, which combined the power of the two highest-level gods, would definitely only be above Luo Hao, who used the Vajra Vigor technique. There was absolutely no reason for it to be weaker. However, in that way, Noah would also lose the divine skill of the Dragon Man incarnation, which was far more powerful than intuition and wildness. He would lose the skill that could match Luo Hao. Only at this time could Noah realize how terrifying Luo Hao's martial arts were. At least, after Luo Hao used the 12 Flying Phoenix palm, Noah would sometimes even be dazed by the miraculous trajectory of the white palms, and almost lose his ability to react. To be able to withstand Luo Hao's palm, it was completely dependent on the divine skill of the Dragon Man incarnation, which was far more powerful than intuition and wildness. It allowed Noah's body to naturally react, and he used his extraordinary intuition and wildness to block Luo Hao's palm strike. Therefore, once Noah deactivated his draconian form, he would lose his instincts and wildness that were no different from foresight. He would definitely be struck by Luo Hao's palm, and at the very least, be severely injured. So, Noah gave up on the idea of removing the Draconid avatar. Instead, he used enhanced magic. Clang! Magic patterns that looked like electric wires immediately climbed up Noah's arm and strengthened Noah's arm strength. Whoosh! Luo Hao's palm strike struck towards Noah's chest with an irresistible force, like a hot knife through butter. Under the control of his extraordinary intuition and wild nature, Noah's body once again reacted naturally. It was as if he knew the path of Luo Hao's palm, as if he could predict the future. He rotated his hand into a fist and punched out. Chi! Noah's punch didn't have too much momentum, but that punch also brought about a violent whirlwind, as if it was covered with a glove made of wind, and it loudly collided with Luo Hao's palm strike. Bang! The heavy fist and the ethereal palm collided heavily once again, causing the terrifying power that permeated the air to sweep out at the same time. It was like a needle against an awl, neither giving way to the other, crazily attacking the other's body. Bang! The ground where Noah and Luo Hao were standing was directly shattered by the violent collision between the two. Huge cracks spread out from under the two people's feet to the entire deep pit. After using enhanced magic to strengthen himself, Noah's strength finally managed to barely keep up with Luo Hao's strength. Good, Luo Hao said excitedly. It seemed that her fighting spirit had finally been aroused. Not only was her whole body filled with the terrifying curse power, but she also rose with an imposing manner that looked down on the world. In the next moment, Luo Hao's palm strike abruptly stopped. Just as one palm was retracted halfway, the other hand turned into a palm and struck out with a whistling sound. It brought along afterimages and ear-piercing sonic booms as it shrouded Noah as fast as lightning. The palm wind that was filled with a frightening strength blew onto Noah's body, causing the clothes on Noah's body to tightly stick to his body. A pair of delicate white hands that were incomparably frightening were rapidly magnified in his eyes. This wild and violent attack caused a ruthless expression to appear in Noah's eyes. He clenched his right fist tightly and threw it out punch after punch. Swish, 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 swish. The sky was suddenly filled with fist shadows and palm shadows, all with astonishing power, and rushed out like a storm. Pung 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 pung. The fist shadow and the palm shadow collided with each other in an overwhelming manner, causing waves of impact and explosions. This caused the entire ground to tremble violently at this moment. Some of the gravel even directly exploded into powder under the impact of the strong wind and scattered, causing smoke and dust to fill the air. Dong! In the huge pit filled with dust and fog, the ground was once again unable to bear the burden and collapsed. Immediately after, two figures flew out from the smoke and dust that filled the air. The soles of their feet brushed against the ground, drawing a gully that was over 100 meters long before they stabilized their figures. However, neither Noah nor Luo Hao moved their eyes away from each other for a moment. Even though there was a thick layer of smoke and a distance of over 100 meters, it was as if they could still see each other's eyes, flashing with a terrifying expression. After more than 200 years, I, Luo Tsuilian, finally met someone who can truly match me in martial arts. Luo Hao's sweet and clear voice was full of excitement, making people clearly feel the excitement in her heart. Rakshasa king of a foreign country, if you were born in my land of China, then you would definitely be able to become a martial arts master, who can compete with me for the position of the Wulin Alliance. Thinking of this, Luo Tsuilian's heart surged, wishing that she was born in the same era as you. Those who were familiar with Luo Hao would definitely be shocked by Luo Hao's words. How many years has it been since Luo Hao acknowledged someone like this? However, regarding Luo Hao's acknowledgement, Noah shook his head. No, it's impossible for me to compete with you in terms of martial arts. You should be able to see that the reason I can compete with you in close combat is because of the power brought by authority. I don't have any skills that can truly match you. This was the truth. If it was swordsmanship, Noah, who has been training his swordsmanship since childhood, may be able to compete with Luo Hao. But in terms of fighting skills other than swordsmanship, Noah only learned martial arts, fighting, karate, taekwondo, and even military physical skills after entering the world of the Dark Bullet for more than a year. Naturally, it was impossible for him to compete with Luo Hao, who has been practicing martial arts for at least 200 years. To be able to fight with Luo Hao like that, it was entirely relying on the intuition and wild divine skills brought by the Dragon Man. His body naturally used those skills, and it was not the fighting skills that Noah learned himself. Don't belittle yourself. Luo Hao shook her head. My Vajra divine art is also the authority that was usurped from God, so I have the ultimate strength. So, even if your skills were also taken from God, it has now become your strength that is yours. Saying so, the smile on Luo Hao's face became even more lovely and sweet. If you can't let it go, then take a look at the true essence of my Vajra divine art. Around Luo Hao's body, the blazing curse power began to rise, making Luo Hao's body rise up like a mirage. One strength defeats 10 skills. One strength suppresses 10 skills. One kick has the strength of 1,000 caddies. One foot settles the earth. With the help of the ballad-like words, the mirage-like illusion gradually became clear. My Vajra divine art not only can give me the ultimate arm strength, it can also summon the Vajra warriors to fight for me. As if to prove the authenticity of Luo Hao's words, two bald giants with a serious expression and exaggerated bulging muscles appeared in front of Luo Hao, emitting golden light. Come, foreign Rakshasa king, it's time for you and me to decide who is better. Let's decide the winner with one blow. As soon as Luo Hao's voice fell, the two Vajra warriors stepped forward at the same time. With a roar, they stepped on the ground and assumed a sumo posture, glaring at Noah. Seeing this, the corner of Noah's mouth slowly hooked up. In the next moment, a huge amount of curse power gushed out from his body. With pleasure. Chapter 517. Ha! Standing in front of Luo Hao like two wall-like giants, the two giants let out a humph and ha respectively. The sound even shook the atmosphere and caused the space to hum. The spell power that constantly burned from Luo Hao's body, like a thick river, flowed into the bodies of the two Vajra warriors, causing the two Vajra warriors to exude an amazing aura. From this point alone, it could be seen that the strength of the two Vajra warriors was definitely above that of the mythical beasts, and could even rival the god of disobedience. To be honest, after beating Warban, the oldest and most powerful demon king in the world, half to death, Noah still had to deal with an opponent of the same level as him. He was more or less physically and mentally exhausted. However, the so-called God Slayer was a natural-born warrior, a king born to fight. Just like Warban, who became more dangerous after being injured, this fatigue not only did not make Noah have the slightest thought of giving up the battle, but he also felt that his whole body was filled with a strength that was stronger than adrenaline. In this case, Noah was confident that no matter how tired he was, he could exert 100% of his strength. At that moment, Noah took a deep breath. In his heart, the stone plate with 10 patterns on its outline rotated rapidly and pointed at the incarnation of the golden wolf again. You have violated the contract and brought evil to the world. The Lord said, sinners must be punished. Their backs will be crushed, their bones, their hair, and their brains dug out, and their blood and soil will be trampled on. If I can't get close to you, I will follow the Lord's words and give the person who violated the contract a hammer of destruction. Following this spirit of words, that represented power and destruction, was a roar that was so loud that it seemed to be transmitted directly from the sky. Roar. The unyielding melody of Bio, who had disappeared on the battlefield because Noah had transformed into the draconian incarnation, sounded once again. A dazzling golden space appeared behind Noah, and it gradually cracked open. A giant golden beast that was comparable in size to the two Vajra warriors struggled to emerge from it, and one of its front paws suddenly fell to the ground. Dong! Bio, whose body had transformed into a giant wolf that could cover the sky, stared at the two Vajra warriors with his gem-like beast eyes. A cold and ferocious nature flashed in his eyes. Roar! At the next moment, Bio let out a bellow, and a brilliant light burst out from his body. His body hair burned up like flames, and his entire body turned into a beam of light. It was as if he was a meteor that could penetrate through space, shooting toward the two Vajra warriors. Pa 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 pa! Suddenly, wherever Bio turned into a giant bright meteor, the ground seemed to have been forcefully plowed by something. As the meteor moved forward, a long gully was created. Humph! Ha-dash! The two Vajra warriors immediately let out a cold roar that shook the air. They actually extended their heavy palms toward the golden light spear that was rushing over. Immediately after, the dazzling meteor that pierced through the sky ruthlessly fell on the two Vajra warriors. Rumble! With a loud noise that shook the world, an incredible and violent shock wave spread out and instantly covered every corner of the surrounding space. Rumble! The ground that was destroyed beyond recognition, and it could be said that there was nothing else that could be destroyed, trembled like an earthquake. It was as if a volcano had erupted from the ground. As the ground cracked, scorching air pillars spurted out. Bang! 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 Amidst the sounds of explosions, what gushed out from the ground was not scorching hot magma, but water pillars that resembled hot springs. They brought with them waves as they broke through the ground from every corner. Accompanied by the violent wind that shook the ground, they sprinkled everywhere. Warban and Tony, who were battling not far away, were also swept up in the shockwaves, and they reluctantly stopped. One of them used his 4 limbs to tightly grab onto the ground, while the other stabbed his sword directly into the ground to barely stabilize himself. At the center of the impact, a competition that did not belong to humans was going on. Woo! 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 The 2 strong Vajra warriors roared angrily. Their 4 arms were like fortresses, firmly resisting the impact coming from the front. Blue veins popped out on each of their arms. Clearly, they were doing their best. Roar! 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 Bio, who had turned into a dazzling stream of light, also roared. Like a huge golden light pillar, he kept rushing forward. However, he was firmly blocked by the 2 Vajra warriors, and they were in a stalemate. Buzz! 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 Under the terrifying impact, the space around Bio, who had turned into a meteor, and the two fortress-like Vajra warriors trembled like a boiling pot. If one were to say that the space would collapse in the next instant, no one would doubt it. Gu Luo Hao, who was protected by the two Vajra warriors behind him, couldn't help but groan under the impact. The cursed power in his body was constantly extracted and poured into his feet to stabilize his body. Noah's entire body was also fluctuating with cursed power. He extended one hand forward, and a gorgeous white light filled the air. The incoming terrifying impact was completely shattered into fragments of air, brushing past the two sides of his body and scraping behind Noah. This caused Noah's coat to violently rise up and down, making flapping sounds. Under such circumstances, at a certain moment, the stalemate was finally broken. Pucci! After such a tearing sound was heard, the two Vajra warriors, who had withstood the huge dazzling light pillar, had blue veins bulging on their arms. Under the effect of the huge impact, their skin and flesh were torn open. The two Vajra warriors had already reached their limit. Luo Hao's expression changed for the first time since she had appeared. Obviously, with Luo Hao's strong confidence in herself, she did not expect that her body would lose to Noah's Bio. Of course, if Bio had not fused Mountain Boar and Crush, he would not have been a match for the two Vajra warriors. Even dealing with one of them would be difficult. But now, after fusing Mountain Boar and Crush, Bio's strength had greatly increased. Therefore, even if his opponents were two Vajra warriors, who were comparable to the god of disobedience, Bio still had the upper hand. This made Noah's eyes shine brightly. Just as Noah was about to inject a large amount of cursed power into Bio to defeat the two Vajra warriors, Noah felt it. Someone was approaching. Moreover, judging from the aura, it was someone Noah was familiar with. Noah turned his head reflexively and looked behind him. Soon he saw it. 3 girls. It was Alice, Erica, and Liliana. You guys? Noah said in surprise. What are you doing here? As soon as he said that, Noah realized that something was wrong. He saw that Alice, Erica, and Liliana no longer had their elegant, gorgeous, and serious images. Every girl's pretty face was flushed red, and they were unwilling to even look at Noah. They were more or less bashful. This made Noah feel strange in his heart, but he couldn't understand it. This is a place that could be razed to the ground at any time. Noah could not help but raise his voice. No matter what happened to you, leave this place first. I don't have the confidence to protect you from 3 kings of the same level. Alice, Erica, and Liliana naturally understood what was going on, but they still had no intention of leaving. Their faces were filled with struggle. This was especially true for Alice, who had only met Noah once. She no longer looked like a noblewoman. Instead, she looked like a real young girl with a blushing face. This made Noah want to go crazy. What was the meaning of these 3 girls? Just as Noah was about to lose his temper, Erica took a deep breath and glared at Noah with a red face. I'm telling you, this can't be helped. We're only doing this because there's no other way. So, no matter what, you're not allowed to think nonsense. Huh? Noah was confused. At this moment, Erica suddenly stepped forward resolutely and kissed Noah on the lips. Chapter 5:18. When Erica kissed his lips, Noah was dumbfounded. At this moment, Noah's palm was still standing in front of his body. With the help of the brand new crush ability that could only be used when using the Golden Wolf incarnation, he crushed all the violent impacts into pure air currents that brushed past his body and blew backward. Because he still needed to control the crush ability and the Golden Wolf incarnation, Noah was directly kissed by Erica. At this moment, the roar of the violent impact waves and the collision between Bio and the 2 Vajra warriors in the center of the impact seemed to have disappeared and could no longer enter Noah's ears. Because even if it was only at this moment, Noah's mind had indeed become blank. If it weren't for the soft touch on his lips and the delicate fragrance from Erica's body that was so real, Noah might really think that he was dreaming. After all, even as a so-called king, Noah didn't think that Erica, with her strong self-confidence, would suddenly kiss him on the battlefield. It wasn't that Noah was too naive, but that this incident came too suddenly and was too shocking. He really kissed her. Miss Erica. Wah, wah wah wah. On the side, Alice and Liliana seemed to have known that Erica would do such a thing, but they still didn't expect it to be so sudden. Coupled with the extremely shocking scene, even though they were known as princesses and prodigies, the two girls still blushed. Then Noah reacted. Just as he was about to push Erica away, Erica seemed to have noticed Noah's action. She reached out her hand first and put it around Noah's neck. As if she wanted to make Noah have no way out or make him regret it, she fixed her lips on his. Ugh! A scorching breath hit Noah's face. Without giving Noah a chance to react, Erica closed her eyes tightly and stuck out her tongue into Noah's mouth, entangling with Noah's tongue. At this moment, a torrent of memories suddenly surged into Noah's mind. Only then did Noah realize that Erica wasn't just kissing him blindly. Curse power was flowing in Erica's body, and it was transmitted to Noah's body through her lips, turning into memories and blending into Noah's mind. After maintaining this scene for an unknown amount of time, Erica finally parted her lips. Huff, huff. Even Erica, who had charmed thousands of Italian men, couldn't help blushing at this moment. Her breathing was disordered, and her eyes were quite blurred. However, Erica quickly regained her composure and let go of Noah's neck. She took a step back abruptly and pointed at Noah with a flushed face, as if she was trying to hide something. Don't let your imagination run wild. It's all for the whole of Italy. To defeat Marquis Warban, Bishop Luo Hao, and Minister Sarbarat. Hearing this, Noah came back to his senses and noticed the changes in his body. Because of the majestic memories brought by Erica's kiss, Noah discovered that in his heart, the outline of the stone plate connected to the images of the 10 incarnations was flashing. It was the image of a warrior holding a dazzling weapon in his hand. Needless to say, it was the image representing the incarnation of the warrior. Warrior, the incarnation from Wellerslana, the blaze that fused Noah's knight's sword and revolver. When he had sufficient knowledge of the opponent, he could weave spirits and form a golden sword to attack. If he used a god as his opponent, he must have sufficient knowledge of the god's own divinity. If he used a god slayer as his opponent, he must have sufficient knowledge of the authority used by the god slayer to be able to cut off the divinity and seal the authority of the god slayer. Even if the opponent was someone other than the god slayer and the god of disobedience, as long as he had sufficient knowledge of the opponent's ability, he could seal the opponent's ability. During the activation of the incarnation, the user's physical ability would also be improved, and at the same time, he would have the ability to see through the opponent's essence. In mythology, Wellerslana, the god of victory, had a golden sword directly linked to wisdom. It was said that the sword could cut off the divinity and bury any god. It was an important factor in Wellerslana's undefeated record. It was because of the golden sword of wisdom that could cut off any divinity that Wellerslana could become an undefeated legend and defeat the enemy gods. However, in order to use the sword, one must have sufficient knowledge of the origin of the opponent god. Therefore, the golden sword was the sword of wisdom. Noah, who had absorbed Wellerslana's power and usurped Wellerslana's authority, also inherited the sword of wisdom. Moreover, after fusing with the original knight's sword and revolver, the nature of the sword of wisdom became more thorough, and the target it could cut was no longer limited to gods. As long as one could understand the opponent's ability, they could cut it off. Previously, because he had learned the true identity of Athena from Erica and Liliana, Noah's warrior incarnation entered a state where it could be used. Now, because of the majestic memory brought by Erica's kiss, the warrior incarnation was once again active. But why? Noah suppressed the impetuosity in his heart and laughed bitterly. Why do I have to do this? That's all for you to defeat the 3 kings. Erica seemed to have calmed down, but her pretty face was still flushed. Lily's spirit vision has discovered the ability of your warrior incarnation. As long as we tell you all the origins of the authority of Marquis Warban, Hierarch Luo Hao and Salba Ray, you can use this incarnation to defeat the 3 kings and avoid serious impact on Italy. Because it's an emergency now, there's no way to leisurely tell you so much about the authority. We can only choose to use the professor's magic to pass the knowledge into your mind. Alice's expression also seemed a little awkward. But the body of the God Slayer is too resistant to curses. It's almost immune to all curses. We can only use magic through kissing, directly into your body. So there's a way to make curses work on the God Slayer? It turns out that curses directly into the body can work on the God Slayer? That's really a blind spot. But then, another question popped up in Noah's mind. The knowledge I obtained seems to be only from Tony, not from Warban and Luo Hao. That's none of my business. Erica turned her head away, as if she was in a difficult position. I only know the origin of Salba Ray's authority. Marquis Warban's authority has always been a mystery. Only Princess Alice knows the details, and Lily used spirit vision to see the origin of Hierarch Luo Hao's authority. Hearing this, Noah's expression froze. In other words, Princess Lily. Erica looked at Alice and Liliana with a faint smile on her face. It's your turn now. Alice and Liliana's expressions also froze, but the two of them were obviously mentally prepared in this regard before they came. Even though their faces were red, they still came to Noah with stiff bodies. Your Excellency Noah. Alice's pretty face was rosy as she greeted Noah. Please make sure this battle comes to an end. Please, Your Majesty. Liliana also said seriously with a red face. Please listen to our request and protect Italy. After saying that, Alice and Liliana closed their eyes at the same time, as if they had accepted their fate. But their delicate bodies kept trembling, and they didn't dare to step forward. Unlike Erica, who was so determined, the two girls were still a little timid and hesitant. Looking at the two girls in front of him who were desperately trying to hold back and give up, their delicate bodies trembling slightly. They didn't even dare to look at him timidly. Noah felt extremely complicated. Putting Liliana aside, Noah had only met Alice once. Is it really okay to continue kissing like this? But both Alice and Liliana had mustered up their courage to barge into the battlefield at this dangerous moment. If he didn't respond to their feelings, how could he live up to their determination? With that thought in mind, Noah decided to go all out. Ugh! Ugh! Some subtle whimpers were drowned out by the whistling of the strong wind and the collision of the impact. Chapter 519. Phew! After an unknown amount of time, the violent storm that swept across the entire battlefield finally calmed down slowly. Splash! The water column that spurted out from the ground splashed on the ground with a clear sound of water splashing. It turned into streams of water that flowed back into the ground along the cracks. The smoke and dust gradually disappeared, revealing the current situation of the battlefield. Warban and Tony stood on both sides of the battlefield, as if they were confronting each other. But their gazes did not stop on each other. Instead, they turned to look at the person standing in front of them. The golden wolf, Bio, had already returned to the size of a horse from his original giant wolf-like size. He stood in front of Noah, his pair of gem-like beast eyes staring straight ahead. Noah, Warban, Tony, and Bio looked at the two Vajra warriors who were standing shoulder to shoulder, but they were no longer standing upright. They were kneeling on one knee on the ground, and their arms had disappeared. Even half of their bodies seemed to have melted away, and they were badly damaged. Even so, the two Vajra warriors still stood in front of Luo Hao with unswerving determination. Even if they had lost their arms and half of their bodies, they would still protect Luo Hao to the end, unless they were completely vaporized. Under such circumstances, Luo Hao stood behind the two Vajra warriors unscathed. He was still as otherworldly and ethereal as ever. However, regardless of whether it was Noah, Warban, or Tony, they could all sense that Luo Hao's domineering aura had been weakened by more than half. Her domineering aura was still present, but her curse power had also become ethereal. Obviously, in order to block Bio's full blow, Luo Hao had also exerted all his strength, causing a lot of consumption. Perhaps Luo Hao's current strength should be the same as Warban's, and he could only exert 70% of his strength. That was not strange. After fusing the incarnation of the mountain boar and the ability of Crush, Bio could even seriously injure Warban with one blow, forcing Warban to choose to self-destruct and use his trump card, the power of resurrection. Although Luo Hao, who was on par with Warban, did not have the power of resurrection. In order to block Bio's full blow, he had also consumed a lot of energy. In terms of results, he was no different from Warban. As for Noah, he had also consumed a lot of his curse power to force the two oldest and most powerful God-slayers into a weakened state. If not for the fact that Noah's curse power was stronger than that of ordinary God-slayers, he would definitely have fallen into a weakened state. In fact, even if he did not fall into a weakened state, Noah had consumed a lot of his power. Luo Hao, his eyes more or less exhaustion. With Bio's strength greatly increased to such a degree, the amount of curse power required to drive Bio to attack was naturally unimaginable. However, for Noah to be able to force the two most ancient demon kings to such an extent, even if they didn't join forces and instead fought one after another, Noah should be proud of himself. It's really hard to believe that you've just become a god-slayer. Not long ago, foreign Rakshasa king. Luo Hao's mouth unknowingly had a trace of dark red blood, but the expression on her pretty face was still as sweet and majestic as ever. How long has it been since Luo Tsuelian was forced to this point? Even the so-called invincible King Wulin was injured? Warban looked a little happy. Kid, you did well. As expected of my lifelong rival. Tony licked the corner of his mouth. I really want to exchange swords with you again. Being praised by 3 God-slayer seniors in a row, Noah did not have the slightest bit of happiness. His eyes were tired, but more than that, there was an intimidating expression. Roar! The golden wolf Bio let out a low growl, and his body gradually dissipated, disappearing on the spot. Noah took a step forward, took a deep breath, and said calmly, "In that case, can it be considered my victory? It's still early." Luo Hao could not help but glare at Noah. Although it's more or less drained, Luo Tsuelian's fists and palms can still block thousands of troops. Hearing this, Noah was not surprised at all. He turned his head to look at Warban and Tony. What about you two? Do you still want to continue fighting? Do you want me to withdraw my claws before they're even stained with my enemy's blood? Warban smiled sinisterly. No, that's not enough to satisfy me. It's rare to have a battle that makes one feel hot all over, Tony said as he carried his sword. To be honest, I haven't had enough yet. Just as Noah had expected, apart from himself, the other 3 God-slayers had no intention of giving up on this battle. In fact, in the beginning, Noah was the same. Whether it was Warban, Luo Hao, or Tony, all of them ran to Noah to satisfy him, and asked for the Gorgon stone on their own, as if they were the only ones in the world. There was no room for negotiation at all, which made Noah quite angry. However, when he thought of how Alice, Erica, and Liliana had barged into the battlefield to stop this battle, and handed him the key to victory, Noah had already calmed down. Now Noah only had one thought: end this battle quickly. Indeed, Noah slowly closed his eyes, and then suddenly opened them, a sharp light flashing in them. Then, I don't need to hold back anymore. The moment he said that, the stone plate in Noah's heart turned and pointed at the image of a warrior holding a bright weapon. Clang! The next moment, an intricate pattern shining with golden light spun out in front of Noah, blooming with dazzling golden light. Let the justice of the world appear with my spell. As the new spell reverberated, a golden sword made of gold with mysterious runes engraved on it emerged from the dazzling golden pattern, bringing with it a burst of dazzling light. This spell is powerful and eloquent, a sword of wisdom that beckons for victory. Noah reached out his hand and grabbed the hilt of the golden sword. Then, he abruptly pulled the golden sword out of the ground. In an instant, the entire dilapidated battlefield was shrouded in a golden light, turning into a golden world. Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony all subconsciously stepped back, narrowed their eyes, and then looked at the scene around them. The sky had turned into a starry sky. The ground had turned into gold. Runes floated around. The space fluctuated with spell power. This was a dreamlike world that resembled a myth. However, such a beautiful world made Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony tremble and feel a chill in their hearts. This was because in such a beautiful world, dazzling golden swords were either stuck in the ground or floating in the air, and some were even hanging in the starry sky. There were at least tens of millions of them. Moreover, the tips of those golden swords were all pointed at Luo Hao, Warban and Tony. What's this? Luo Hao, Warban and Tony were shocked. Although it was only for an instant, Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony all felt a sense of danger. This was no joke. The Godslayer's intuition in battle was very sharp. Even if it wasn't as exaggerated as Noah's, it was still closer to a beast. Instinctively feeling danger was definitely not an illusory thing. Noah, who was holding the most dazzling golden sword in this world, pointed the sword at Luo Hao, Warban and Tony, and said indifferently, "Sorry, I'm sorry. Although I have the resolve to accompany you to the end. To be honest, no matter how many rounds there are, I don't think I'll lose to any of you in a one-on-one duel. But there's no other way now." Noah's lips slowly curled up. "I've been entrusted with the request to keep you guys in line, because something terrible has happened. Since I've already done so much, if I don't make you guys behave, I'm not a man. So, let me make all three of you leave at once." Luo Hao, Warban and Tony, who were still trembling in fear, were infuriated. "If you can do it, then give it a try." Almost at the same time, the three God Slayers said the same sentence, and suddenly jumped up and rushed in the direction of Noah at the same time. Chapter 520. Whoosh! In a world where the sky was the starry sky, the earth was gold, and mysterious runes were floating around, and the space was fluctuating with vast power of spells, Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony flew out like streamers, leaving three different trajectories in the air as they rushed toward Noah. Looking at the three Godslayers, Noah fearlessly raised the golden sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was aimed at Luo Hao. "Luo Hao, your Vajra Vigor technique is the authority that you usurped from the god known as King Ren, the secret Vajra Vigor and King Luo Yanjian." When Noah weaved the knowledge in his mind into the most direct spiritual language and chanted it, waves of spell power reverberated from all directions. Hum 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 hum. The golden swords that had been inserted into the ground suddenly trembled and soared into the sky. They suddenly turned and formed a wall of swords in front of Noah, with the tips of the swords pointing forward. To be more precise, they were aimed at Luo Hao. King Ren and Xian were originally a pair. Although they were two people, they appeared as the same divinity. In your country, they were also known as the Hung and Ha generals. In Buddhism, the two of them were guardian gods who existed specifically to protect the Dharma. That was why they were given the title of King Ren. They guarded the left and right sides of the Buddhist temple, and were regarded as door gods. They were Vajra warriors who could unleash extraordinary strength. Under the influence of Noah's spiritual language, the golden swords that were aimed at Luo Hao rose and fell, creating a sharp sound as they pierced through the air. They flashed out and shot toward Luo Hao. After usurping this authority, you obtained that transcendent power. You obtained unparalleled monstrous strength, and you can even summon the appearance of the King of Ren. Because they originally existed to protect the divinity, they would naturally appear to protect the master. As Luo Hao's pupils shrank, the golden swords that shone with a strong light swept out and enveloped Luo Hao's body. And your dragon roar and tiger roar technique is the power that you seized by defeating the Hindu goddess Gayatri. She has 5 faces and 10 arms, and she is worshipped as the goddess of hymns. She is the goddess of words and language, and she is also the protector of literature, art and science. But most importantly, this goddess is also in charge of music and art. She can manipulate the spirit of sound, and she is the goddess who offers hymns to the gods. The golden sword screen that enveloped Luo Hao suddenly blossomed with dazzling light. After defeating the goddess of hymns, you obtain the dragon roar and tiger roar. By chanting hymns, you can set off a huge shockwave. This is the origin of your authority. As soon as his voice fell, the golden sword curtain that enveloped Luo Hao turned into a ball of light amidst the vibrations in the air. And then it exploded. Bang! Amidst the magnificent loud noise, a burst of thick smoke and golden light shook the air. Inside, Luo Hao's entire body was smoking as he fell. He smashed onto the ground and let out a painful groan. Wadash! This scene made Tony stop in his tracks with a shocked expression. Kid, Warban, who had transformed into a giant wolf, tightened his limbs and glared at Noah. What did you do? It's not just Luo Hao's authority. Warban, I also know the origin of your authority. Hearing Warban's question, Noah just smiled and pointed the golden sword in his hand at Warban. Your pack of greedy wolves was stolen from Apollo, who had many names and the divinity of rat, wolf, silver and gold. The new words made all the golden swords floating in the air come to life. With a spin they pointed at Warban. Apollo was born from the goddess of earth. At first, Apollo was a god born from the earth. He was originally the child of the goddess of the earth. When he was first born, he was a rat. Later he became a wolf. And then he became a god in the form of a child. Therefore, Apollo had a close relationship with the earth, and also had a close relationship with the wolf. It wasn't until the Apollonian religion succeeded and worshipped Apollo as the sun god that Apollo became the incarnation of light. At the same time, he had the contradictory nature of light and darkness. You who killed Apollo seized the part of the wolf from his body. This is the origin of the wolf pack. The golden swords that were aimed at Warban also shot out explosively, flashing through the air and enveloping Warban. Warban's expression changed, and he hurriedly raised his huge wolf claws to block in front of him. However, the golden sword rain still enveloped Warban's huge body. Poochie! Poochie! Instantly, the sound of tearing was heard. Woo! 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 Woban, who was enveloped by the golden swords, let out a sorrowful cry. His huge wolf body was covered in wounds, and his body was covered in wounds. Among the gods of ancient Egypt, there was a god named Osiris. He was the husband of the goddess of earth, Isis, who was good at magic. He was the god of food, a close relative of the pure earth, and the goddess of the underworld. Noah ignored Warban's screams and continued to chant the words to activate the golden swords. As the spouse of the Mother Earth, who controls the chain of life in the myths, Osiris was once cut into 14 pieces in the myths, but his wife repaired his torn body and allowed him to regain his life. He descended to the underworld and became a god who was resurrected from the dead. He also became the ruler of the underworld. Your servant of the dead's cage was usurped from him. It can turn those who died in your hands in the past into the living dead, subject to your control. As for your stormy storm, you stole it from the god of wind and rain, who was popular in the civilizations of East Asia and Southeast Asia with China as the center. They were gods from China or North Korea named Wind Master, Rain Master, and Thunder God. After killing them, you naturally obtain the power to control storms and become the embodiment of violence. As Noah's words echoed in the air, the golden swords that were mercilessly cutting into Warban's body dissipated, revealing Warban, who was lying on the ground and had reverted to his old man form, covered in blood. Is that a sword that can cut through a godhead? Tony's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. He looked at Noah with a forced smile. You've been hiding such a trump card. Tony, I know the origin of your authority. The most representative one is your torn silver hand. Right? Noah slowly raised his hand. The Celtic god King Nuada was a famous military god. However, when he led his men to attack Ireland, he was injured in a battle with the local gods. As a result, he lost his right arm. The god of medicine created a silver arm for him, who only had one arm. You have usurped this power from this god king, allowing him to cut off all things in the world. The golden swords that were hanging in the air spun and fell from the sky with a piercing sound, arriving in front of Noah. As for the steel guardian, it is the authority that can give you the toughest body. You stole it from Siegfried. That famous dragon-slaying hero's body was once bathed in dragon's blood, turning him into an immortal body. That's why you can make your body as hard as steel. The golden swords that arrived in front of Noah suddenly shot out like a rain of swords, attacking Tony with ear-piercing screeches. Seeing this, Tony's expression tensed up. He quickly raised his sword and was about to use his trump card when Noah's merciless voice sounded. Then, you have another authority that can strengthen or activate all the mystical powers and make them go berserk. That is what you stole from Dionysus. He was the god of wine that the Thracians worshipped in ancient Greece. He had the power to intoxicate people with wine. That is how your authority came to be. When the words that seemed to announce the end of the battle resounded throughout the world of gold, Tony's body was already covered by a curtain of golden swords. I am the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. Be it human or demon, I am the one who defeats all enemies. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. The holy words of the undefeated God of victory reverberated in the air, causing the entire world of gold to flash with a blinding light that could burn people's eyes, illuminating every corner of the world. This light did not dissipate for a long time. Chapter 521. Phew! Feeling that more than half of the cursed power in his body had been depleted, Noah could not help but feel tired and let out a heavy sigh. His body that had been tense from the battle began to relax. The excitement in his heart also gradually subsided. Since the Godslayer was a natural warrior born to fight, his body and mind would enter the best combat state when faced with a situation that required him to fight, allowing him to display 100% of his strength perfectly. Then when the Godslayer's body relaxed, it was easy to imagine what it meant. The battle was over. There was no doubt about that. In fact, if the battle was not over, then Noah really did not know if he could continue to fight. After all, the warrior avatar could only deal with one target under normal circumstances. In order to seal Luo Hao, Warban and Tony, which added up to more than 8 authorities, Noah had activated the warrior avatar more than 8 times. That consumption was even more severe than using Bio, who had great power. Although it was not to the extent of being depleted, Noah's curse power had been depleted to less than 1/10 of its original level after dealing with Warban and Luo Hao in succession, as well as Warban, Luo Hao, and Tony in one fell swoop. Of course, although the consumption was large, the results were also gratifying. Suppressing the tiredness and fatigue in his heart, Noah raised his head and looked around. Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony were lying in different positions on the ground. One was smoking all over, one was covered in wounds, and one did not seem to have any obvious injuries, but he was also lying on the ground. His breath was so weak that it made one wonder if he would die at any time. The golden sword used by the warrior avatar could cut through the quintessence of the god of disobedience and seal the authority of the Godslayer. Even if the target was not the god of disobedience and the Godslayer, it could still seal the opponent's ability. In addition, the golden sword could also cause substantial damage. Of course, that was when the golden sword directly hit the target. Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony were unfortunately cut by the golden sword curtain, so it was natural that they would end up like this. However, things were not over yet. Noah forced himself to focus and turned his gaze to the corner of the battlefield. His eyes gradually turned cold. What? Are you going to hide there again? The entire place fell silent. After a while, a petite figure appeared there without any warning. You've really surprised me. A childish and cold voice came out of her little mouth. As far as I know, each of the 3 Godslayers, who were your opponents, had the power to match me when I was the Queen of the Holy Trinity. Since you were able to defeat all 3 of them, it really exceeded my expectations. Is that so? Noah sneered. Even the famous goddess of wisdom, Athena, has unexpected things. That proves that your power has far exceeded the scope of what this concubine's wisdom can determine. Athena's dark snake eyes stared at Noah. After a while, a smile appeared on her emotionless face. It seems that the witch Pandora has indeed obtained a child that is the most special even among our enemies. You didn't come here just to flatter me, right? Noah glanced at Athena. Although things have more or less exceeded your expectations, in order to defeat Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony, I have indeed weakened a lot. If you attack me now, you might be able to take back your snake. Don't tell me you don't have this thought at all? Indeed, looking at the current situation, this is the wisest choice, Athena calmly replied. However, the part of me that belongs to the goddess of wisdom is warning me that if I attack you, I won't be able to succeed even now, and my life might even be in danger. Therefore, I think that you should have prepared a sword to deal with me, right? Hearing Athena's words, Noah slowly narrowed his eyes. This Athena, she actually guessed this? However, Noah did have a sword that could deal with Athena. Although he had consumed a lot of energy, Noah could still use the warrior avatar again. If Athena chose to attack him here, then she would definitely not be able to return alive. Knowing this, Athena didn't seem to have the intention to attack anymore. She shifted her gaze to Noah and curled her lips. If that's the case, Noah Dole, I'll leave my snake with you for the time being. Hearing this, Noah was stunned. What does this mean? Athena is going to give up the Gorgon stone? Impossible, right? When I appeared on the ground this time, I thought that searching for the snake was my mission. But now it seems that the real connection between me and the snake is not my snake, but you who obtained the snake. Athena looked up and said word by word. My intuition is telling me that the connection between you and me seems to be far more than what it is now. Perhaps, from the moment I appeared, my fate was inseparable from yours. Meeting you in the birthplace of magic is also a kind of fate. Only this point, even as the goddess of wisdom and the former queen of the divine realm, I still can't control. So, I'll leave my snake with you for the time being. Athena turned around. We will meet again, Noah Doria. After leaving this sentence, Athena stepped into the distance and leaped hundreds of meters away in an instant. Immediately after, she took another step and disappeared from Noah's sight. Only then did Noah's heart relax, and he tilted his body slightly in exhaustion. However, just as Noah's body tilted down, two figures suddenly appeared beside Noah, supporting Noah and supporting Noah. Sure enough, no matter how powerful you are, you can't be as free and easy as before after dealing with three kings of the same rank at once, right? Erica, who was holding Noah's left hand, smiled sweetly. However, ordinary kings can't do such a thing. To be able to achieve such an amazing record, you are indeed worthy of being the king we follow. It's been hard on you. Liliana also spoke softly, which was rare for her. Please have a good rest. In the end, we still have to deal with the aftermath. Alice, who had appeared here at some point, looked around and sighed. Italy has to bear a huge loss again. This was immediately obvious if one took a look at the surroundings. With Noah, Luohao, Warban and Doni as the center, the area within a few hundred meters of them had been completely destroyed. There were no buildings to be seen at all, and there was not even a decent ground to be found. Pillars of air and water were still gushing out from the ground, extinguishing the sea of fire that was still burning due to Warban's self-destruction. Such a scene directly reminded one of the crater after a volcanic eruption. Although this was not as exaggerated as the previous crater, because Noah defeated Luohao, Warban, and Doni in time, it was still a disaster for humans. It's better than the whole of Italy being destroyed by the four kings, right? Erica revealed a devilish smile. This loss is already considered small. After saying that, Erica fell silent. Even Alice and Liliana fell into silence, causing the atmosphere to become awkward. Looking at the blushing faces of the three girls in front of him, Noah knew that they were thinking about the scene of Professor's magic on him. He smiled helplessly. Compared to that, it's better to think about how to deal with those three troublemakers first. Apart from Doni, Luohao and Warban were the kind of people who thought highly of themselves. After waking up, if they recalled that the three of them were defeated by Noah even when they joined forces, it would not be strange for them to vent their anger on others. This made the three girls laugh bitterly. Bring them back to the hotel first. Noah also smiled bitterly. As long as I'm here, these people shouldn't cause any trouble. Alice, Erica and Liliana nodded and helped Noah to the hotel. Chapter 522. On that day, due to the several duels between Noah, Luohao, Warban and Tony, the incident of the terrain changing was reported in the form of news by the various magic societies in Italy. Of course, the magic societies in Italy were not enough to expose the existence of the magic world to the ordinary people. With the manipulation of the intelligence, the incident was finally published in the form of a report of a large amount of natural coalbed methane hidden underground was suddenly detonated, making the people of Italy think that it was just an accident. Fortunately, there were no casualties this time as well. After all, after Noah learned that Erica and Liliana had been abducted by Warban, the first thing he did was to ask the people in charge of the Red Bronze Cross and Black Cross branches to disperse the residents there. Naturally, there would not be any casualties. The reason for dispersing the crowd was the same as the last time, that it was detected in advance as an excuse. This time, the incident was once again reported as a pure accident. However, as long as they were related to the magic world, it was impossible for them not to know the real reason for this incident. Thus, it wouldn't be long before Noah first defeated the oldest demon king, then defeated the unparalleled Wuxia king, and finally won against the combined forces of Warban, Luo Hao and Tony. News of Noah's incredible battle prowess should spread throughout the entire magic world. After today, Noah would definitely become the most famous and most untouchable person in the entire magic world. However, no matter what kind of uproar the magic world would cause because of this incident, it had nothing to do with Noah. With the help of Alice, Erica, and Liliana, Noah settled the three deicide down. Then, he returned to his original hotel room, sat down on the bed, and closed his eyes. Although the several battles with Warban, Luo Hao, and Tony did not cause much harm to Noah, Noah had consumed a lot of energy. The physical and mental exhaustion was just one of the reasons. The real consumption was Noah's curse power. Before becoming a deicide, Noah's curse power was already very extraordinary. After becoming a deicide, Noah's curse power was naturally much higher than that of other deicide. But even so, after so many high-level battles, Noah's curse power was almost exhausted. According to the current situation, Noah would have to rest for at least 1 or 2 months if he wanted to recover all his curse power. This was not surprising. If there was anything to blame, it could only be that Noah's curse power was too extraordinary. Once it increased, it would be troublesome to fully recover. At least, that was what Noah thought before returning to the hotel. With his eyes closed, Noah immersed his consciousness in the depths of his mind. He saw the outline of the stone plate with the pattern of the 10 avatars. He saw that on the stone plate with the pattern of the 10 avatars, there was a pattern that was flashing. It was a guild emblem that looked like a fairy's tail. It looked like a fairy flying freely in the air. That was the pattern of the fairy avatar. Fairy, an avatar formed by combining Wellislana's shepherd avatar and Noah's regenerative ability from the protozoan virus. No matter how serious the injury was, as long as it caused damage to the body, it could be expelled in a very short time, allowing the user to recover to their original state. Since ancient times, the existence of shepherds was a symbol of harvest and vitality, because shepherds were relatively easy to raise. Therefore, from a long time ago, shepherds were regarded as livestock, as food, and as support for human life. Over time, in the era of superstition, shepherds gradually turned into sacred beasts. In addition, in a nomadic society, the size of livestock was directly related to the abundance of food and even financial resources. It was directly related to the number of people that could be supported. Therefore, shepherds was also a sacred beast that had a deep relationship with royalty. As the guardian of the people and royalty, Wellislana, who had a variety of forms, also had the avatar of shepherds. Using the avatar of shepherds, Wellislana would obtain vitality that others could not match. Even if he died, he could be resurrected. Noah, who absorbed Wellislana's power, also obtained this power, and as a result, the avatar of fairy was born. Originally, the avatar of shepherds already represented an unimaginable terrifying vitality that could resurrect people. And in the world of the Dark Bullet, the protozoa virus also had an extremely foul vitality that could allow people to regenerate in all aspects of the human body. The highest level of regeneration could even allow people to survive, even if they were thrown into a high-temperature volcano. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Now, with the fusion of the avatar of shepherds and the regenerative ability strengthened by the protozoa virus, the vitality and resilience of Noah's fairy avatar could be imagined. Using this avatar, whether or not he could resurrect Noah was still unknown. After all, Noah was not at the point where he needed to die. However, in a situation where his body was extremely weak and his curse power was depleted, before Noah returned to the hotel, he had already discovered that the pattern of the fairy avatar had been flashing. This made Noah puzzled, and he faintly had some guesses. Let's give it a try. After making up his mind, Noah chanted the spirit of words. Noble and smart, elegant and beautiful, I praise your life. Here you are integrated with nature, accompanied by the chanting of the fairy. That was like a mumble, but also like a soundless dream. Noah's body began to fluctuate with a burst of brilliant starlight, as if he was wearing a coat made of the stars in the sky. His whole body exuded an extraordinary aura. Under the shroud of the starlight, Noah's appearance did not seem to change, but the changes inside were huge. First of all, the extreme fatigue that had been shrouding Noah's heart began to slowly dissipate. Secondly, Noah's greatly depleted curse power began to become active, as if an invisible curse power lake was suddenly connected to his body, allowing Noah's curse power to rapidly recover. Aware of this change, Noah's spirit was lifted, and he was surprised. The avatar of fairy can also recover fatigue and curse power. Noah had always thought that the avatar of fairy could only heal injuries. As a result, the avatar of fairy suddenly gave Noah such a big surprise. According to the current recovery situation, it would only take about half an hour for Noah's fatigue to be completely eliminated. Even the curse power that would have taken 1 or 2 months to fully recover could be restored to its peak state in 2 or 3 hours. This was the terrifying recovery ability of the avatar of fairy. It seemed that the recovery ability of the avatar of fairy was not only for the body, but also for Noah's various injuries. Even the spirit and curse power can be restored. This avatar can't really bring me back from the dead, right? Noah suddenly had a strong impulse to try and see, but after a second, he realized the foolishness of this idea. Could it be that I can die once and see if I can be resurrected? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but more than that, he was pleasantly surprised by the avatar of fairy and muttered to himself, perhaps the other avatars have other effects that I haven't discovered yet. It had been less than a month since he obtained the authority of 10 avatars, and this powerful force naturally had many areas that could be exploited. Unfortunately, it's useless for the God Slayer to train honestly. The God Slayer can only become stronger in battle. Noah shook his head helplessly. It's better to wait until I've fully recovered to find Erica and Liliana, and personally memorize the origins of Luo Hao, Warban and Tony's authority, so that I can mobilize the warriors to deal with them. Using the magic of Professor could allow one to obtain an extremely large amount of knowledge in an instant. However, that knowledge could only be maintained for about a day or so. That was to be expected. If the effects of magic could be maintained forever, then there would be no need for magicians, or even humans to continue learning. Let's hope those 3 guys wake up later. Leaving such a sentence, Noah closed his eyes and immersed himself in the recovery of fairy. Chapter 523. Here's everything. In Noah's room, Erica and Liliana piled several thick books on the glass table in front of the sofa. Bishop Luo Hao, Marquis Warban, and Sarbat Riken have usurped the authority from every god, and the content of the myths are all here, Liliana said to Noah, who was sitting on the sofa. Marquis Warban's wolf pack of greedy wolves came from Apollo, Servant of Death came from Osiris, Storm came from Fungbua, Rain Master, and Thunder God. Even the pupil of Sodom came from the one-eyed Roman god of war, Horatio Cocleus. It's quite detailed. Archbishop Luo Hao's Vajra divine art came from King Luo Yen, and the secret Vajra warrior came from Gayatri. The dragon roar and tiger roar came from Gayatri. These 2 divinities are also recorded here, Erica added. Also, the origin of Sarbatri's lacerating silver hand, the origin of Nuada, the origin of Siegfried's protection of steel, and the origin of the authority that can make all mystical powers go berserk. The records of Dionysus, the god of wine in ancient Greek mythology, are also here. Hearing this, Noah directly picked up a rather old and heavy book that was closest to him, and casually flipped through it. Thanks. With these, my warrior avatar can be fully utilized. It should be much easier to deal with Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony. They won't be able to act rashly anymore. As mentioned earlier, the knowledge obtained from the professor's magic could only be stored in the mind for about a day. That was to say, the large amount of divine knowledge that Noah obtained from Erica, and Liliana yesterday was all gone. He could no longer use that knowledge to activate the warrior avatar. Originally, Noah was still thinking that with his special physique, if he could completely absorb the power that entered his body, he wondered if he could also absorb the knowledge brought by the professor's magic. In the end, Noah did not know if it was because what entered his body was not power but knowledge. He still remembered the knowledge of the gods clearly yesterday, but when he woke up early this morning, he could not remember all of it. Although it was a little regretful, Noah, who was already mentally prepared, was not disappointed. He then went to ask Erica and Liliana about the divine knowledge yesterday. Erica and Liliana immediately said that it was too troublesome to teach by word of mouth, so they simply asked the people in charge of the Copper Black Cross and Bronze Black Cross branches to send the books that recorded the divine knowledge for Noah to read by himself. As long as the contents of these books were all memorized, Noah could at any time forge a sword that could be used to deal with Warban's Wolfpack, Servant of Death, Stormy Storm, and Eye of Sodom, as well as authority that could be used to deal with Luo Hao's Vajra Vigor, and Dragon and Tiger Roar, Tony's Lacerating Silver Hand, Steel Shield, and Berserk Divine Wine, that was later named by the Sage Council. The Sword of Gold was also the Sword of Wisdom. This was something that Noah understood very well. And he also understood how unfair it was to be able to use the Sword of Gold as a warrior. Whether the opponent was the god of disobedience, or the god slayer, or even someone other than the god slayer, and the god slayer, as long as he had sufficient knowledge about the opponent's power, he could seal that part of the power. That was to say, as long as he had sufficient knowledge, the Sword of Gold, which could even cut through the divinity, was simply a nightmarish weapon for the enemy. Moreover, unlike the Black Tea King, the Sword of Gold did not need to be in contact with the opponent to be activated, but it also had restrictions that required sufficient knowledge. To use the Black Tea King, one would need to be in contact with the opponent, and once in contact, one would be able to plunder one of the opponent's abilities. To use the warrior, one would need to have sufficient knowledge. If one was prepared, one would only be able to seal the opponent's power, but there was no limit to the amount of power that could be sealed. As long as one had sufficient knowledge and the power of the incarnation, one could seal as many times as one wanted. Compared to the former, the latter was more useful for Noah. After all, Noah's power of curse was even more unfair than the average god slayer. He could use the incarnation of the warrior many times, and Noah's memory and comprehension were strong enough to learn a language in a short time. It would be much easier for him to learn any knowledge he wanted. The warrior incarnation was indeed very suitable for Noah. As for the Black Tea King, being able to plunder one of the opponent's abilities was indeed very powerful. But there was only one ability to plunder. The prerequisite of being in contact with the opponent was too uncertain, so it was a good choice to integrate it into the warrior incarnation. Of course, both the warrior and the Black Tea King had their own advantages and disadvantages, but the warrior was more suitable for Noah and had more practical use. It's just that, even if you're prepared to deal with Bishop Luo Hao, Marquis Oban, and Sarbatries in advance, you might not be able to defeat the three kings again, right? Erica said to Noah, putting everything else aside. Hierarch Luo Hao is a king of the same generation as Marquis Oban. It's impossible for him to only have two powers, the Vajra Vigor art, and the Dragon's Roar and Tiger's Roar. There's no need to even mention Marquis Oban. That king's powers are not fully understood by the Sage Council. Apart from the most commonly used and confirmed wolf pack of voracious wolves, Servant of Death, Stormy Storm, and Eye of Sodom, there must be other powers that have yet to be revealed. Then is it the same for Sarbatries? Liliana tilted her head. That king has a total of 4 powers. At present, 3 of them have already been exposed, but the last power is still in hiding. Although you yourself say that power is completely useless in battle, but it may have other uses. Even so, whether it's Oben Luo Hao or Tony, the authorities that they use and are most familiar with are the ones that we know of so far. Preparing the swords that seal these authorities will be very advantageous in battle, Noah said without raising his head as he flipped through the book. I'm confident that I can defeat them even when they're at their peak. If they're in a state where a large number of authorities are sealed, just like yesterday, even if the three of them come at me together, they won't be my match. Indeed, the battle yesterday had proven this point. However, Erica and Liliana shook their heads at the same time. My king, you've just reincarnated as a god-slayer, and your thinking is still at the level of a normal person. If you use those words to evaluate the god-slayers, it'll be very troublesome, Erica said bluntly. The so-called god-slayers are all existences that have killed gods when they were still ordinary people. At that time, needless to say, they were definitely much weaker than gods, but in the end they still succeeded. Although luck played a large part in the godslayers' success in killing gods in the beginning, if they weren't born warriors, even if they were lucky, their legs would start to tremble when facing gods, let alone brandishing their swords at them, Liliana said solemnly. Even if most of the powers of the kings are sealed, as long as there's a trace of power left, the king can still fight. And once a trace of opportunity appears, the kings of the godslayers will be able to seize it and win. Erica continued Liliana's words and looked straight at Noah with her beautiful eyes. It's the same for gods, and it's also the same for you, the king of the same rank. Noah's hand that was flipping through the book paused. Erica and Liliana were right. Whether it was Luo Hao, Warban, or Tony, they were all existences that had killed gods. How could they be defeated so easily just because most of their powers were sealed? The godslayers couldn't be judged by human common sense. The godslayers' nature was more like that of wild beasts. Even the weakest of wild beasts still had fangs that could bite off a human's neck and claws that could tear a human's body apart. Therefore, one couldn't let one's guard down just because they could seal most of the godslayers' powers and think that they were easy to deal with. If one did, one would definitely die a horrible death. At this moment, Erica suddenly changed the topic. Speaking of authorities, my king, I have a question. Chapter 524. Question. Noah, who was secretly warning himself not to underestimate Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony because of yesterday's victory, was startled. He closed the book in his hand and looked at Erica. What question? Liliana also looked at Erica in confusion, as if she didn't know what Erica's question was. Under such circumstances, Erica pondered for a moment and spoke. Yesterday, you did use the golden sword that was specially designed to deal with the god of disobedience and the godslayer. It's a sword that can cut through godheads. The sword of the undefeated god of victory, Welslana, is quite famous. Noah nodded and didn't correct Erica's words. After fusing the knight's sword and the revolver, the golden sword that the warrior could use in his avatar was no longer limited to dealing with the god of disobedience and the godslayer. Even if it was still able to sever the godhead, the sword of wisdom would be able to sever everything it knew even if it was another opponent's ability. It was always successful. Noah didn't need to specifically explain this point. He only needed to know it himself. However, Erica raised a question about the sword of wisdom. Could it be that Erica had discovered this? But since becoming a godslayer, Noah had only used the golden sword once, and that was when he dealt with Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony yesterday. Yesterday, Noah had only used the golden sword to seal Luo Hao, Warban, and Doni's authority as godslayers. He did not seal the rest of their powers. How then did Erica find out? To Noah's surprise, Erica's next question was not only about the golden sword that the warrior avatar could use, but also about the authority of Noah's 10 avatars. When Liliana used her spirit vision to see you use the golden sword to defeat the 3 kings, I didn't think of this because the situation was urgent. But now that I think about it, it's really strange, isn't it? Erica asked suspiciously. The 10 clones stolen from Welslana, should have very strict usage limits and usage limits. Even if it's the golden sword, it should only be used once in a certain period of time. Using it to seal an authority is already the limit. Erica looked straight into Noah's dark and deep eyes, as if she wanted to see through all his thoughts. She put on a gorgeous smile that was full of aggression like a lioness's. Then, why were you able to seal no less than 8 authorities from the 3 kings at once? Could it be that you used the golden sword 8 times without limit? Noah immediately looked at Erica, secretly surprised. Erica, you've noticed that too? In that case, it's really strange. Liliana also came to a realization. That golden sword that can cut through the Godhead needs to be forged with knowledge, so it is also called the Sword of Wisdom, also known as the Sword of Spirit of Speech. As long as you have the knowledge of one Godhead, then you can forge a sword to deal with that Godhead. If you want to deal with another Godhead, then you need to reforge a sword, which is equivalent to weaving wisdom and spirit of speech. But the avatar can only be used once in a certain period of time. Once it's cancelled, it can't be used again, so you can continue to forge a new sword, right? Liliana looked at Noah with a puzzled look. But the king can weave a spirit of speech to deal with 8 Godheads and prepare 8 swords. That doesn't seem to meet this restriction. Unless... The smile on Erica's face became more and more threatening. Your warrior avatar doesn't have a limit on the number of times it can be used. It's even possible that the other avatars don't have a limit on the number of times it can be used. Maybe there are even conditions for using it, right? The entire place fell silent. Liliana widened her eyes and looked at Noah in surprise. Erica, on the other hand, looked like she was going to force a criminal suspect into a corner, so that the other party could only confess. Her face was full of provocation. In response to this, Noah smiled indifferently, and his expression turned into a smile that was not a smile. What's the matter? Are you curious about my authority? Or rather, we're curious about your power. Erica's eyes rippled with a strange light. It's not just the power from Welislana's 10 avatars. Yesterday, when you dealt with Bishop Luo Hao and Marquis Warban, you also summoned a golden wolf. The power of that wolf has exceeded the category of a divine beast. Moreover, Welislana and Mekl are gods that have nothing to do with wolves. Why do you have the power to command such a wolf? Also, there seems to be something strange about the battles you fought yesterday. Erica opened Liliana's mind. As she recalled yesterday's battle, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Come to think of it, you also seem to show signs of repeatedly using your avatars. All of this points to a problem, Erica concluded. The power of your 10 avatars that you usurped from Welislana doesn't seem to have strict usage conditions and time restrictions. Each of them is obviously stronger than an avatar should be. Those are no longer the so-called 10 avatars, but more like 10 individual powers. The origin of that wolf is unknown, and Mekl's power is also strange. Liliana's brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and then she glared at Noah. You're still hiding something from us, right? At this point, it's useless even if you deny it, Erica said calmly. At this time, I advise you to be honest. Listening to Erica's analysis and Liliana's questions, and looking at the 2 girls in front of him, one was looking at him with an aggressive smile, while the other was staring at him fearlessly. Noah smiled, and it was a very strange smile. It seems that yesterday's professor has changed your impression of me. Huh? Both Erica and Liliana were stunned. Didn't you notice? Noah said, amused. Your interrogation just now was different from before. It's not the attitude you should have toward a king. Also, the honorifics have disappeared without you noticing. Only then did Erica and Liliana come to their senses and realize their own problems. Immediately their faces reddened. No, what are you talking about? Erica took a step back. Her aggressiveness was completely gone, replaced by embarrassment and a fake smile, as if she was trying to cover up her loss of composure. It's useless to try to shake me, Erica Brantery, with these words. No. It's my fault for not using honorifics. You can punish me however you want, Your Majesty. Liliana even summoned her Grandmaster Silversmith, and aimed it at Noah's neck with tears in her eyes. But he said something about you, that his feelings for you have changed. That's definitely not true. Am I right? Am I right? Are you asking or interrogating me? It looks like a threat, doesn't it? Noah raised his hand with a wry smile and surrendered. Okay, it's my fault. Anyway, how about you move the sword away first? Liliana didn't seem to realize what she had done until now. She quickly put away the sword, got down on one knee, and said sorrowfully, "How dare you point your sword at the king? You're not qualified to be a knight. Please punish me, your majesty." "Okay, I'm just joking with you," Noah said helplessly. "I already have a fiancé, and you're God's favored children. You can't be my concubines, right?" Fiancé. Erica and Liliana froze. Then, a strange emotion welled up in their hearts. At this moment, Erica's and Liliana's mobile phones both rang, waking the two girls up with a start. They took their mobile phones out and went to the side to have a conversation. Looking at this scene, Noah stopped joking and frowned. After a while, Erica and Liliana hung up the phone, and their expressions became serious again. Seeing this, Noah's frown deepened. "What happened?" Erica and Liliana looked at each other, nodded, and answered in unison. Sect leader Luo Hao, Marquis Warban, and Salbart have all woken up. Hearing this, Noah looked at the book in his hand. They really woke up at the wrong time. Chapter 525. In a luxurious hall on the top floor of the hotel that was comparable to a conference room, a strange, heavy, and tense atmosphere filled the air. Noah, who came in with Erica and Liliana, could tell where the strange, heavy, and tense atmosphere came from at a glance. In the center of the hall, at a round table that looked like a conference table, Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony were facing each other at the farthest distance. Although it was called a confrontation, it was actually just Luo Hao and Warban looking at each other. Luo Hao looked at each other with a haughty look like a tyrant looking down on the world, while Warban smiled unhurriedly. His evil eyes flashed with an evil glint, making the atmosphere extremely heavy and tense. As for the strange atmosphere, it came from the third person present. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. The table in front of Tony was full of dishes, and Tony was eating and drinking, as if there was no one around him. It was as if he didn't notice the tense atmosphere at all. His attitude made the heavy and tense atmosphere around him strange. The first person to notice Noah's arrival was Tony. "Yo, Noah." Just like before, Tony greeted him in the same way as before. "Oh, you're here too? I thought you weren't here." Upon hearing Tony's words, Luo Hao and Warban finally looked away from each other and turned to Noah. As soon as he saw Noah, Warban's aged face curled into a sinister smile like a lone wolf eyeing its prey. Luo Hao, on the other hand, knitted her beautiful brows when she saw Erica and Liliana standing behind Noah. "Who are you?" Erica and Liliana knelt on one knee at the same time, almost as if it was a conditioned reflex. "I've heard a lot about you, sect leader Luo Hao." Although Erica lowered her head, her voice was neither servile nor overbearing. "I'm Erica Brantley, the Grand Knight of the Italian Magic Association Red Bronze Black Cross. I'm here to pay my respects to the Eastern Martial Arts King. Liliana Kranikar also sends her greetings to you, Sect Master." Liliana lowered her head and said, "I am the Great Knight of the Bronze Black Cross. I am currently following His Excellency Noah as a follower. I'm not asking about your identities." Luo Hao's frown deepened. "Girls, you have to be clear about your own weight. I, Luo Hao, am an unparalleled supreme martial artist. From the very beginning, I had no intention of placing you in my sights. What I'm asking is why you're here." Luo Hao's gaze toward Erica and Liliana turned unpleasant. "Don't you know that as long as you see my figure, you will be punished?" After being reminded by Luo Hao, Noah, Erica, and Liliana finally remembered. The Wuxia king from the east had a vicious reputation for gouging out the eyes of those who saw his face and destroying the ears of those who heard his voice. From this point of view, Luo Hao is undoubtedly more terrifying and dangerous than Waban. After all, although Waban was capricious, he could still hold a conversation with others to a certain extent. However, Luo Hao wasn't like that. The Wuxia king didn't put anyone in his eyes at all. To be more precise, he didn't have the habit of putting anyone in his eyes. Even a child prodigy who was promoted to a great knight before reaching adulthood was no different from an ordinary person in Luo Hao's eyes. Therefore, Luo Hao's reprimand wasn't angry. Instead, he was disinterested. A person of my status can't talk to the people directly. Do you understand? Luo Hao said coldly. Those who look directly at my body will have their eyes gouged out, and those who hear my voice will have their ears cut off. Girls, I don't have any followers around me to carry out the punishment, so you'd better carry out the punishment yourselves. Luo Hao stated this dangerous sentence in the most natural tone, as if he was talking about the existence of gravity on Earth. He didn't realize how ridiculous it was at all. Obviously, Luo Hao didn't have a correct outlook on life. Moreover, he didn't have a correct outlook on life. Noah had no doubt that once Erica and Liliana begged for mercy, Luo Hao would be so impatient that she would directly use Dragon Roar and Tiger Roar to crush Erica and Liliana into mince meat with the blast wave. Wouldn't she? This made Erica and Liliana's expressions change. Sect Master Luo Hao, Noah said indifferently. Although I don't doubt that you're the leader of the martial arts circle of China, and your status is higher than the average emperor, Erica and Liliana are my followers. As the king of China, you don't seem to have the right to punish my followers, do you? Your followers? Luo Hao was stunned and finally turned his gaze to Erica and Liliana. Are you his followers? Hearing this, Erica and Liliana finally understood that they had never entered the heart of this beautiful girl before them, let alone have a high or low status. Just as Luo Hao said, she didn't care about Erica and Liliana at all. Otherwise, Luo Hao should have known that Liliana had just introduced herself as Noah's follower. Of course, it wasn't that Luo Hao didn't hear Liliana's words, but she didn't care about the content of Liliana's words in the first place. That was why such a funny scene happened. Since you're the followers of the king who shares the same rank as me, I really don't have the right to punish you. Luo Hao loosened her furrowed brows. The two countries are at war. Even the emperor has no right to punish the envoys of the king of a foreign country. Girls, apart from the king who shares the same rank as me, there are definitely no more than 5 people who can see my face. You should rejoice. Yes, Sect Master Luo Hao. Erica and Liliana secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They remained kneeling on one knee, lowered their heads and stopped talking. Warban, who had been watching the show from the side, sneered. It seems like the people I like aren't even qualified to enter the eyes of the Wuxia King of China. It's great that we have different interests. That was right. Warban liked people like Erica and Liliana, who wouldn't be obsequious to him. To Warban, nothing was more boring than obedience. Therefore, people like Erica and Liliana, who would bare their fangs at him from time to time, and were neither servile nor overbearing, were the perfect targets for Warban. It had nothing to do with strength, but whether or not they could relieve Warban's boredom. On the contrary, Luo Hao looked down on everyone in the world, and was only interested in the king, who shares the same rank as her. Should it be said that this pair of enemies really formed a sharp contrast in all aspects? Be it Luo Hao or Warban, both of them had lost their personalities, and didn't have the values of a normal person. It was no wonder that people thought they were the fiercest demon kings. However, that kind of thing doesn't matter. I'm just staying here to tell you. Warban stared at Noah and clicked his tongue. Kid, I admit that I lost this time. But the next time we meet, I, Warban, will bite your neck off with my own mouth. Remember that. After saying that, Warban stood up and turned around. A whirlwind suddenly swept up his body, and he disappeared. Devil King of a foreign country, you've also defeated me, Luo Hao. Therefore, I won't allow you to lose to anyone other than me, so as to avoid tarnishing Luo Tsuelian's reputation. Luo Hao said without any explanation. Luo Tsuelian will return to her hometown, to the mountains where she lives in seclusion, and practice martial arts diligently again. The next time we meet, we'll definitely have a showdown. After saying that, Luo Hao also stood up, and took a deep look at Noah. It was as if she wanted to remember Noah's appearance. With a flash, she disappeared on the spot along with a wave of flower petals. Seeing that Luo Hao and Warban had left without causing any trouble, Noah heaved a sigh of relief. Originally, Noah was prepared to fight again. It was best that he didn't have to do anything. Oh, you've been targeted by a group of people. Tony was the only one left at the scene, eating and drinking to his heart's content as he spoke with a chuckle. As expected of my close friend and strong enemy. However, don't forget that you still have me as your opponent. You have to be vigilant. You'd better go somewhere cool. Noah couldn't help but curse. You walking trouble. Don't let me see you again. Hey, don't be so cold. Scram. Chapter 526. Speaking of which, Noah has not had a moment of peace since he came to this world. Less than an hour after he arrived in this world, he met one of the only 6 gods in this world, and now there are 7. He even fought with the other party. He was abducted by the troublemaker, the god slayer, and was half forced to make the decision to kill the god. It was a life and death battle with the 2 highest level gods. After being reincarnated as a god slayer, he was found by the god slayer, who was known as a troublemaker, and they fought again. He also met the Trinity Athena, who was looking for the snake, and after some twists and turns, he found the Gorgon stone. Then, 2 of the most ancient and ferocious demon kings that Athena had lured over came looking for me. Not only did I fight them once, but I also killed 3 demon kings of the same rank. I was targeted by this group of people. It had only been less than a month since Noah came to this world, but he had already encountered things that others might not have in their entire lives. He was involved in one battle after another. Fortunately, in the end, Athena seemed to no longer intend to take the Gorgon stone from Noah's hands, and after making the decision to temporarily leave the Gorgon stone with Noah, she disappeared. Originally, by right, the whole thing should have come to an end, and Noah would also have the long-awaited peace. However, in the following days, Noah realized how naive his idea was. He didn't know if Noah was destined to not be too peaceful in this world, or if the people who killed gods were destined to not be peaceful. After Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony all left, Noah took Erica and Liliana on a journey that could only be described as legendary. In an unknown rural place, they confronted the evil magic society head-on. In unknown ancient ruins, they were fancied by various mythological beasts. In unknown deep mountains and forests, they were challenged by inexplicable powerhouses. In all kinds of unknown or well-known places, they were found by all kinds of matters related to God, and fell into the whirlpool of a battle of wits and courage. In the end, Noah, who only wanted to travel while looking for clues about the world fragment, did not really look for the world fragment for even a day. Instead, it was as if he was cursed, and he unknowingly went deep into the center of all kinds of events. In the end, Noah, who originally wanted to deal with it casually, ended up doing all kinds of important things that were definitely worthy of the headlines. For example, he could destroy the evil magic society along with their headquarters. For example, they would destroy the mythological beasts that roamed the ancient ruins, along with the ruins themselves. For example, they would take down the experts who came to challenge them, and destroy the so-called deep mountains and forests. Another example would be when encountering a god-related event. The source of the event would be completely destroyed. As a result, everything that Noah was involved in was completely destroyed. Noah didn't do it on purpose. Of course, it couldn't be said that Noah didn't do it on purpose. It could only be said that when Noah realized it, he realized that because of him, all kinds of things were completely destroyed. Noah didn't want to cause such damage at all. However, the God Slayer was born to be a warrior. Once he got serious, his body would naturally enter the best combat state, allowing him to exert 100% of his strength. Therefore, generally, when Noah got serious, even if he deliberately restrained himself and held back, it would still lead to the destruction of the battlefield in the end. It couldn't be helped. The authority of the 10 incarnations, which was derived from the power of Noah, Welslana, and Mecher, was too powerful. Sometimes, even if he held back, it would still cause great damage. In addition, the God Slayer itself was an existence that could become stronger in battle. Noah had disappeared. And the limitation ability that was integrated into the 10 incarnations could also allow Noah's authority to enter a state of self-enhancement when not in use. Whether Noah was fighting or not, he could make the authority stronger. In this way, the damage caused could only be greater. There was absolutely no possibility of it being smaller. Therefore, generally when Noah realized it, the surroundings had already been destroyed. Noah lived like this for 3 months. It wasn't until 3 months later that Noah finally grew through all kinds of battles. He finally had full control of the authority of his 10 incarnations. As long as Noah was careful not to overdo it, he could control the power of the authority and not cause unnecessary damage for no reason. The premise was that he didn't encounter an opponent that needed to use too much power to deal with. It's here. In front of a hotel, Liliana took out her mobile phone. After checking a little, she nodded to Noah. "This is the hotel I booked before coming to this city. Let's rest here today. I can finally stay in a luxurious hotel room," Erica complained. "I don't want to stay in a hotel that doesn't even have a bathtub full of petals when I take a bath. Do you have to go through so much trouble to take a bath?" Noah sighed. "Sure enough, a young lady is a young lady. Even if I, Erica Brantley, am a young lady, I'm the most gorgeous and honorable kind of young lady," Erica said to Noah matter-of-factly. "I'm not the willful young lady in your impression. Then why don't you try not complaining when you suffer a little?" Noah rolled his eyes at Erica and then praised Liliana. "You're more obedient. Every time you enter a city or town, you'll book a hotel or inn in advance. It's much easier for us." No, Liliana couldn't help but blush at Noah's praise. As the king's knight, you should at least do this much. Looking at Liliana's shy appearance, Noah couldn't help but smile. After 3 months of getting along, Noah had already understood that although Liliana appeared to be rigid on the surface, she was full of the flavor of a young girl in her heart. At the very least, Noah knew that Liliana was not good at dealing with heartfelt praise from others. On the contrary, Liliana could calmly accept the praise of her achievements as a prodigy. Perhaps it was because to Liliana, it wasn't an achievement to be shy about, but an achievement to be proud of. "A knight." After hearing Liliana's words, Erica looked at Liliana with a teasing look. "Not a servant but a knight? Cut the crap." Liliana glared at Erica. "After such a long time, your mouth is still as dishonest as ever." "Well, aren't you the same, Lily?" Erica retorted calmly. "You should change your habit of speaking without thinking when you're angry. Our king is still around." Upon hearing that, Liliana became even angrier, but she also began to have scruples about Noah. She could only shut her mouth and grumble unhappily. "I'm going to purchase some necessities tomorrow in case it's inconvenient to go to a rural area with nothing like before. Then I'll have to trouble you, Lily." Erica waved her hand. "That kind of job of buying things in the noisy downtown is really not suitable for me. As a noble lady, I should eat in a high-class restaurant or go shopping in a famous commercial center." "You're so annoying," Liliana replied in a displeased tone. "You're just lazy." Noah spread his hands helplessly as he watched the 2 beautiful ladies, one in gold and one in silver, start their daily bickering. "All right, go in and rest. We'll only stay in this city for a day before continuing our journey." Upon hearing this, Erica and Liliana looked at Noah with a strange expression. "You're right." Erica shrugged. "We should only stay for a day." "That's right, we should." Liliana sighed. "If there aren't any accidents." "Wait, don't say such ominous words. I really don't want any accidents to happen. We'll only stay here for a day." Perhaps it was because he was recalling his experiences in the past 3 months, but a shadow appeared on Noah's face. "If possible, I really don't want to have anything to do with gods and mythical beasts." After saying that, Noah walked into the hotel with the amused Erica and Liliana. Unfortunately, Noah's prayer was destined not to be fulfilled. Chapter 527. It was nighttime. In one of the rooms of the hotel that Liliana had booked, Noah was sitting on the bed, flipping through a book. Of course, it was a book that recorded the myths of some gods in the mythological system. In the past 3 months, whenever Noah was free, He would ask Erica and Liliana to provide him with books on the mythological system, so that he could memorize the knowledge of various gods in his mind. Needless to say, this was to prepare for the golden sword that could only be used in the form of a warrior. Although Erica and Liliana had the magic of Professor, and the two girls had also learned all kinds of knowledge related to gods since they were young, they could use Professor at any time to provide Noah with the knowledge needed to forge a sword, but it had to be done through kissing. Not to mention whether Erica and Liliana would mind this matter, and whether Noah would mind this matter. The fact that he had to rely on the help of others to use the form of a warrior made Noah quite uncomfortable. It was not that Noah hated other people's help, nor did he disdain to be helped by others. Noah naturally knew how important companions were. So of course, Noah was happy to have companions by his side to help him. The reason why Noah felt uncomfortable was because of his cautious and strong character. After all, who could guarantee that a companion who could help him would be by his side at a critical moment? It was impossible for Erica and Liliana to stay by Noah's side all the time, and it was absolutely impossible for Noah to happen to have companions who could use techniques similar to Professor, and who knew the knowledge of gods every time he fought. Right? Does that mean that Noah won't be able to fight without the help of others? Noah did not like the feeling of not being able to control things. Instead of waiting for someone to help him during a battle, it was better to make good use of the idle time, so that he could fight alone even without companions. That was Noah's personality. Besides, Noah had a very high understanding and memory, not to mention other things. If it was learning something, it would be very fast. Therefore, the warrior avatar was very suitable for Noah. Compared to thinking about how to make the knight's sword come into contact with the opponent to activate the Black Tea King's ability, the warrior's sword could be prepared in advance, and the condition to use it was also a test of Noah's memory. So Noah was more inclined towards the latter. Although it was a pity that he did not have the ability to plunder other people's abilities like the Black Tea King. Now that he had the authority of the 10 incarnations, Noah had a lot of abilities. There was no need to think about plundering other people's abilities anymore. Noah understood the principle of biting off more than one could chew. Gotcha. While Noah was still flipping through the books and memorizing the knowledge of every god in his mind with his powerful memory and comprehension, the door of Noah's room was opened with a slight sound. Outside the door, Liliana walked into Noah's room with a tray. On the tray were some dishes and a cup of fragrant black coffee. When he heard the sound of the door opening, Noah guessed who it was. He didn't know if it was because Liliana had a better impression of him after 3 months of being together, or Liliana's so-called responsibility as a knight was causing trouble. About 1 or 2 months ago, Liliana would usually prepare supper and a cup of black coffee for Noah when Noah was resting. Moreover, it was all made by Liliana herself. Lily. Noah, who closed the book, looked at Liliana, who walked in, and smiled helplessly. Did you prepare supper for me again? Yes. Liliana put the tray in front of Noah and said righteously for the umpteenth time. Taking care of the king's life is also a knight's responsibility. No, that's not a knight's responsibility anymore, right? Noah complained for the umpteenth time. If I remember correctly, that should be the responsibility of the butler and the maidservant, right? If you treat me as an ordinary knight, I'll be very troubled, Liliana said seriously. Only an outstanding knight can take care of the master's life well. I'm at most your employer, right? Noah sighed. When did I become your master? No. Liliana's serious face slowly disappeared and turned into a bashful expression. It's unknowingly like that, right? There will be all kinds of situations on my side, right? Miss Liliana? Noah laughed dryly. I don't know what you're talking about. In short, as your knight, your follower, it's my duty to take care of your life. Liliana began to twist her words, as though she couldn't find any words to refute. You're the king. At times like this, you should show the magnanimity of a king and shoulder all the problems with ease. This again. It's really difficult to be a king. Noah shook his head with a wry smile, but he still picked up the cutlery and tried a mouthful of Liliana's cooking. At this moment, Liliana's expression relaxed and she asked with anticipation and nervousness. How How is it? It's not the first time I've eaten your cooking. Haven't you commented on it many times in the past? Noah picked up the black coffee that Liliana brewed and took a sip. Actually, I'm also quite surprised that you're so good at cooking. Erica, the missy, wouldn't spend her time on boring things like cooking. Instead of cooking personally, Erica should be more willing to spend her time choosing the clothes to wear, right? As for Liliana, Noah thought that a serious and strict person like her would be more willing to spend her time on improving her swordsmanship and magic. But in the end, Liliana was very good at cooking and even housework, giving off the vibe of a young lady. I know who you're comparing me to, but if possible, I really don't want you to compare me to that woman. Liliana was speechless as though she saw through Noah's thoughts. That vixen doesn't understand the manners of a young lady at all. She teases others with a devilish smile and makes others fall into a bottomless hell. That's the nature of that vile woman. Please don't compare me to her. Indeed, rather than saying that Erica's character is gorgeous, it's more like saying that she's cunning, Noah shrugged. But in my opinion, there are indeed many aspects of both of you that are worthy of being compared to each other. Is that so? Liliana frowned, and her tone was filled with displeasure. What are you referring to? The most obvious thing is your talent in swordsmanship and magic. Everyone knows that you two are the only prodigies in Italy, so it's normal to compare the two of you, right? Noah said casually while sipping his black coffee. Apart from that, you don't have much overlap in other aspects, but each of you has something that you're good at. Erica has an extraordinary talent in socializing, and she's been in charge of communicating with the big shots in the past 3 months, which saved me a lot of trouble. However, she's not good at delicate work. On the contrary, although you're not good at feigning civility with others, you're very good at delicate work. You're also very good at housework and cooking, which complements Erica perfectly. Noah put down the black coffee in his hand and cast his gaze at Liliana, who was still frowning. I think Erica must be very clear about this in her heart, which is why she's focused on dealing with the big shots of the various magic associations and left me in your care. To be honest, the two of you, one in charge of external affairs and the other in charge of internal affairs, have really helped me a lot. Nguyen suddenly smiled. In my opinion, both of you are excellent knights. Be it the same martial arts or the things that you're good at. I always feel that without the two of you, I wouldn't be able to read as leisurely as I am now. I'm very grateful to both of you. Liliana's tightly furrowed brows slowly relaxed and she sighed. Since you've already said that, what else can I say? You don't have anything to say, but I have a lot to say. Noah changed the topic. Actually, I've always wanted to ask you a question. Liliana was taken aback. I hope you can answer it seriously. Noah looked straight at Liliana. Do you really think it's good to be by my side? Chapter 528. Why would Erica and Liliana willingly follow Noah as his followers? Erica and Liliana had already explained this point when they came to Noah's side, as early as Noah's followers. It was because magic associations like the Copper Black Cross and the Bronze Black Cross couldn't watch a god slayer like Noah, who was likely to bring turmoil to the entire magic world, and even bring huge losses to the whole world, wander around Italy casually. In that case, what was the difference between him and a walking bomb? It was precisely because of this that Erica and Liliana came to Noah's side. It wasn't that they were monitoring Noah or controlling Noah's behavior, but if there were 1 or 2 people looking after Noah, it could at least avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. Doni was also a dangerous person, wasn't he? That was why Andre was looking after Doni, wasn't it? It was the same reason. The magic associations in Italy wanted Erica and Liliana to look after Noah. It was best if they could solve all the big and small troubles before Noah got into trouble. They didn't want Noah to do it himself, so as not to cause too much damage. This was the idea of the magic associations in Italy. In addition, as the king of the god slayers, Noah was also entrusted with the hope of fighting against the god of disobedience and protecting mankind. At this time, Erica and Liliana, as Noah's followers, could be the middlemen, conveying the God-related problems of the various magic associations in Italy to Noah, and asking Noah to solve them. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, it was necessary to send one or two capable followers to Noah. It just so happened that Erica and Liliana, who had witnessed the whole process of Noah slaying the god, and the commemorative moment of Noah's reincarnation as a god slayer, had already known him before Noah became a god slayer and acted together. Sending Erica and Liliana to Noah's side as followers would not arouse Noah's disgust. Andre also knew Doni in advance before he became Doni's trusted butler. It was because of this reason that Andre could scold Tony without any hesitation, even though he wasn't the king of the same rank as Tony. This was the idea of the magic associations, led by the Copper Black Cross and the Bronze Black Cross. In this way, Erica and Liliana became the best candidates for Noah's followers. And in fact, with Erica and Liliana's company, Noah's journey in Italy was indeed much more convenient. Erica and Liliana were also very careful and never overstepped their boundaries. They also didn't give Noah the feeling that he was being watched, let alone arouse his disgust. This made Noah feel very comfortable in all aspects. However, what did Erica and Liliana think in person? As attendants sent to Noah's side by their respective magic associations, were Erica and Liliana there of their own free will? Did they come to Noah's side out of a sense of responsibility? Or was it because they couldn't disobey the orders of their magic associations? Noah was rather concerned about this. You've helped me so much and taken good care of me, so I also care about what you think. At that moment, Noah's tone was rather sincere. Lily, do you really think it's good to stay by my side? Sensing the sincerity in Noah's tone, Liliana felt complicated and touched. How could Liliana not be touched that Noah was so considerate of the people around him and herself? After all, except for Noah, almost all of the other god slayers were arbitrary people who never thought much about the people around them. This was why the god slayers were also known as the Demon King. Compared to those demon kings, although Noah, the Demon King, would also cause great damage once he fought, the man in front of her was actually very gentle. Liliana had long noticed that. In this way, Liliana had no other choice but to answer seriously. Please rest assured that Liliana Kranikar is willing to follow you. Liliana's words naturally became respectful again, and her expression and voice were indescribably serious. Indeed, as the king said, in the beginning, I chose to become the king's follower because of my sense of responsibility, but there was no reluctance in it. That's because Lily is a serious person and has a sense of responsibility. Noah shook his head. Out of a sense of responsibility, Lily willingly chose to be your follower, didn't she? Maybe so, but that's already a thing of the past. Liliana's expression began to soften and relax slowly, and she couldn't help but smile. After these 3 months of being together, I have understood very clearly that you are different from the other godslayers. You are very gentle and considerate, but you are also very overbearing and strong. Sometimes you look very calm, but in some places, you are surprisingly impulsive. I'm impulsive. Noah's face was full of suspicion. I think I'm the type who can control my emotions very well. I'm not as impulsive as you think, right? No, people like you who are gentle and considerate in some places are actually more impulsive than the average person, Liliana retorted. For example, 3 months ago, Marquis Oban kidnapped Erica and me just to get the Gorgon stone from you. Marquis Oban's arrogant and condescending attitude certainly displeased you. But if you were calm, the result could have been resolved in a way other than a battle. But in the end, you chose to go to war with Marquis Oban without a word, didn't you? That's why you are impulsive, but that also comes from your gentleness and consideration, as well as your overbearing and strength. Liliana couldn't help but laugh, and her expression was particularly gentle. There is a part of you that values your companions and those close to you very much. So when you found out that Marquis Oban had kidnapped Erica and me, you were no longer as calm as usual. And there is a strong and domineering part of you. Being looked down upon by Marquis Oban like that, you became not as easy to negotiate as you usually are. And in the end, it evolved into a battle, right? Well, Noah was speechless. After hearing what you said, I also feel that I am not as good at controlling my emotions as I thought. At least, no matter how angry and impulsive you are at the beginning, once the battle begins, you will let yourself enter a state of absolute calmness. This kind of control is extraordinary, Liliana said. However, once you enter a battle, you will be too focused on dealing with your opponent and will not be able to pay attention to your surroundings. This is because your overly powerful strength will cause great damage to your surroundings. It has been like this for the past 3 months. At this point, Liliana became a little shy. Because of this, I don't know when it started, but the idea of "I have to watch you" has been deeply ingrained in my heart. If I don't continue to be by your side, you will definitely cause some damage, so I can't leave your side. Hearing this, Noah's heart finally became clear, and he smiled. Then, I will continue to trouble you in the future, Lily. Liliana's expression suddenly brightened, and she nodded repeatedly. Yes, that's for sure. Noah and Liliana looked at each other and smiled, making the atmosphere in the air much warmer. Outside the door, Erica leaned against the wall and overheard the conversation in the room. She smiled sweetly. This king is really gentle. The next day, Noah, who woke up early, went downstairs alone from the room upstairs, went to the high-class restaurant on the first floor of the hotel, and began to order breakfast. There were also many hotel guests who woke up early and were having breakfast like Noah. Erica and Liliana were still resting. Come to think of it, in a while Liliana, who is also used to waking up early, will come downstairs and drag Erica, who isn't used to waking up early, out of bed, right? Even though Noah came downstairs first, he would still wait for Erica and Liliana to come downstairs after breakfast. This was one of the tacit understandings that the three of them developed over the past 3 months. Just as Noah was about to order, a strange feeling crept into the range of Noah's sensory ability, causing his hand that was holding the menu to pause. He lifted his head and looked ahead. Over there, a beautiful white girl was slowly walking towards them. Chapter 529. Accompanied by the loud and clear sound of high heels, the girl walked into the hotel's restaurant unhurriedly and walked in the direction of Noah. She looked very young, about 12 or 13 years old. It was obvious that she was at an age where she shouldn't be in a hotel. However, in the hotel's restaurant, the rest of the guests and waiters didn't look at the girl's direction strangely. It was as if the surrounding people didn't notice the girl's existence at all. In fact, this was indeed the case. The surrounding people didn't notice the girl's arrival. As if she should be ignored, the girl firmly stepped forward and walked in the direction of Noah. Noah had seen this phenomenon many times. For example, 3 months ago, when he was tracking Athena, Noah once encountered 2 magicians from the evil magic society in a restaurant. The existence of those 2 magicians was also ignored by the surrounding people, as if they didn't see them in the first place. However, the girl in front of him was much more shrewd than the 2 magicians. The 2 magicians from the evil magic society, who appeared in the restaurant, before used techniques similar to suggestion and hypnosis. They spent a lot of effort to make the surrounding people unable to notice them. However, this girl had really made her figure disappear, concealing her figure. Only those with a certain degree of mastery in curse power and curse techniques would be able to discover her approach. At this moment, Noah withdrew his gaze and no longer paid attention to the other party. Although he didn't know whether the girl had bad intentions or not, Noah didn't feel his instinct of being a god slayer to be vigilant. If a god slayer encountered a god of disobedience, it would naturally enter a state of battle, filling the body with power stronger than the effect of adrenaline. Now Noah didn't feel this way. In other words, the girl in front of him was not a god of disobedience type of existence. Then, Noah didn't need to be nervous. However, Noah didn't relax. The beautiful girl in the white summer dress was completely like a classical doll made by a famous craftsman. She didn't look like an existence that should appear in the human world. Noah also felt a supernatural sense of unreality from this young lady. Coupled with that exquisite invisibility spell technique, the girl didn't look like an ordinary person, or even an ordinary magician. For such a person to deliberately approach Noah, the god slayer, it was obvious that it was not just to ask about his well-being. Under such circumstances, the girl came to the table where Noah was sitting, lifted the corner of her skirt, and bowed slightly. "Nice to meet you, Seventh King. Please forgive me for coming uninvited." The young girl's voice was as sweet as her appearance, but there was a kind of elegance that ordinary children shouldn't have, giving people the feeling that she was a little adult. Noah raised his head and looked at the girl in front of the table. "Since you've come uninvited, you wouldn't have come all the way here if there wasn't anything important, right?" "No, you've misunderstood." The girl smiled elegantly. "I'm just here to greet you. Today." Noah glanced at the girl and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "If you say so, then should I think that after today, you won't appear in front of me just to greet me? This is also a misunderstanding." Facing a god slayer, the girl's attitude was still full of calmness, and she wasn't afraid of Noah. She looked straight into Noah's eyes and said, "It's just that, I think, with the special relationship between you and me, if we meet in an emergency, there won't be time for me to greet you. So, I want to greet the most special king before that time comes." "The most special king?" Noah raised his eyebrows. "Although this body is insignificant, I've heard of your achievements," the girl said calmly. "You killed 2 of the highest level god of disobedience to become a god slayer. In less than a month after becoming a god slayer, you consecutively defeated the oldest demon king, the Eastern king of Wuxia, and the Italian king of swords. Even Athena couldn't do anything to you. To be able to achieve these results in less than a month, I don't need to explain how special you are." "Oh," Noah smiled indifferently. "I know how special I am, and so do others. But I think others will know how special you are, right?" The girl's expression didn't change, and she still maintained her elegant smile. "You're overpraising me, King. Compared to you, this body is just an insignificant figure. Whether you're an insignificant figure or not, it's up to me to judge." Noah looked directly at the girl and said suddenly, "Speaking of which, when I first became a god slayer and fought with Tony, you were there, right?" The girl's smile froze. "Alice said that when I fought with Tony, there seemed to be an existence called God Ancestor secretly watching. It's very likely that he would do something." Noah acted as if he didn't see the girl's frozen expression and said casually, "And you were there that day, with Alice and another person with an extraordinary aura. It seems that you're that so-called God Ancestor, right?" The girl's frozen smile gradually disappeared as Noah spoke, and the way she looked at Noah also changed. "As expected of a rather special person among the many god slayers, it seems that your uniqueness is not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of wisdom. No wonder the goddess of wisdom couldn't do anything to you. Don't praise me too much. I just have a special sensing ability, although you were far away at that time. In order to observe the fight between Tony and me, you used some kind of magic that allowed your vision to leap, right?" Noah supported his chin with his hand and said very casually, "A person's aura is directly linked to their magic power and curse power. From a person's curse power, I can identify the user's aura. The aura on your body is basically the same as the curse power on that day. In addition to the warning that Alice gave me, it wasn't difficult to guess your origin. No, it's already very impressive that you could identify me when we met." The girl seemed to have regained her calmness, and a sweet smile appeared on her face. "I didn't intend to reveal my identity when I came to greet you today, but since you're so wise, it would be rude of me to not know what's good for me." After saying that, the girl once again lifted the corner of her skirt and bowed to Noah solemnly. "I'm Guinevere, the god ancestor, and also the queen of witches. Please enlighten me." "Guinevere?" Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. It was impossible for Noah not to have heard of this name. Noah had heard of this name in the past 3 months, not to mention now that he had become familiar with the books of various mythological systems in the past 3 months. This name was exactly the same as the name of King Arthur's wife in the ancient British legend. In other words, this was a name that should have belonged to a god in mythology. In that case, Alice once said that the god ancestor was an existence that was born through the reincarnation of the former goddess Gaia. after she died under some special circumstances. Could this girl in front of him be the reincarnation of Guinevere? It seems that you've guessed my true origin, Your Majesty. Guinevere smiled very happily. It's great to be able to tell you my real name. Is that so? Noah curled his lips. Then tell me your real intention. Don't tell me that you're really just here to greet me. If that's the case, let alone me, even you won't believe it. Coming to greet you is indeed one of my purposes this time. Guinevere shook her head. However, the most important thing is that Guinevere wants to invite you to the next banquet. Banquet? Noah frowned. Soon, the god of disobedience will descend on Napoli, Italy. Guinevere lowered her head. At that time, I hope Your Majesty can come. After leaving these words, Guinevere's figure slowly dispersed like mist and disappeared from Noah's sight. Magic transfer? Noah's frown deepened. Napoli? Recalling Guinevere's words, Noah rubbed his eyebrows thoughtfully. Whatever. Let's have Erica and Liliana investigate first. Chapter 530. Ding! In the sound of the elevator's arrival, Noah walked out of the elevator that opened automatically. As he walked in the direction of Erica's room, he felt a little impetuous because of an inexplicable feeling in his heart. When he was talking to Guinevere, Noah didn't notice anything wrong. But when Guinevere left, Noah inexplicably had a strange feeling in his heart. That feeling was like something important was close at hand, but it suddenly left. Noah, who was aware of this feeling, didn't even eat breakfast. He even had an impulse to catch up with Guinevere directly. However, Noah finally restrained this impulse and chose to discuss with Erica and Liliana first to figure out the information brought by Guinevere. However, Noah had basically confirmed it. There was only one thing that could make him suddenly have this inexplicable feeling. World fragment. That was to say, the clue of world fragment was on Guinevere. It was even very likely that the world fragment that Noah had been looking for 3 months was actually on Guinevere. This made Noah start to really care about Guinevere and the information brought by Guinevere. The god of disobedience is about to appear in Napoli? Noah was very puzzled. Even if there is, why did Guinevere invite me over? With such doubts, Noah's footsteps towards Erica's room quickened slightly, and his expression more or less showed a trace of helplessness. In the end, Erica and Liliana were right. Did something unexpected happen? Although this was what he said, Noah's expression didn't show much reluctance. In the past 3 months, Noah had also been involved in various events for various reasons, most of which were related to gods. For example, a divine beast appeared inexplicably somewhere. An irregular magic association tried to summon the god of disobedience in an inhumane way, or simply encountered the moment before the god of disobedience appeared and stopped the other party from descending at the critical moment. Over time, Noah even began to be afraid. He only hoped that nothing related to gods would come to him again. This time, if what Guinevere said was true, it proved that a god of disobedience was about to descend in Napoli. If it was in the past, Noah would definitely be annoyed. But this time, if he could really find the world fragment, then Noah didn't mind letting Guinevere become the third god of disobedience to die in his hands, after Welslana and Mecher. Noah, who secretly made up his mind, came to Erica's room, pushed the door open, and walked in without even saying hello. Erica, it's time to get up. I have something for you and Lily to do. With that said, Noah's voice became weaker and weaker as he saw the scene in the room. In the end, not a single sound could be heard. It was as if his neck was being strangled, and he was speechless. In the room, Erica and Liliana were also stunned and frozen in place. There was no other reason. Perhaps it was because they had just taken a shower. But at this moment, both Erica and Liliana were wet all over. Water dripped from their hair and fell to the ground, wetting the floor. But this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that both Erica and Liliana seemed to have just come out of the bathroom. They were taking off their bathrobes and preparing to change their clothes. In other words, the two young ladies, one in gold and one in silver, were completely naked. As a result, Erica's petite yet abnormally voluptuous body and Liliana's slender, yet fairy-like body, were imprinted in Noah's eyes at the same time. Together with the powerful impact, they were permanently imprinted in Noah's memory. Noah was silent. Erica was silent. Liliana was also silent. The entire audience fell into a deathly silence. It was as if time had stopped, causing everyone to forget to move. However, under such circumstances, Noah's expression became stiffer and stiffer, while Erica and Liliana's faces rapidly turned pink at a speed visible to the naked eye and gradually transitioned to a blush. After a while, Noah took a deep breath and laughed heartily, as if he had called the wrong number. "Excuse me, please continue." After that, Noah closed the door and gently retreated. Bang! The door was closed. After closing the door, Noah immediately covered his ears. "Ya dash!" Almost at the same time, Liliana's scream resounded throughout the entire hotel. Erica, on the other hand, didn't hear anything at all. Of course, that didn't mean that Erica should pretend that nothing had happened. Chi! With a cold arc, a silver-white long sword as slender as a western sword cut through the air and suddenly stabbed at Noah's neck. However, in the face of this ferocious sword, Noah only raised his hand, and when the tip of the sword was about to land on his neck, he suddenly used 2 fingers to clamp down on the silver-white blade, causing a light and crisp ding sound, and neutralized the opponent's attack into nothingness. Seeing that Erica's pretty face was still flushed but full of anger, Noah chuckled bitterly. "Erica, you didn't show any mercy with that sword, did you?" "Of course didn't I?" Erica smiled like a blooming flower, but her smile was somewhat forced and twisted. "My body is not a cheap product. Since you've seen it, you naturally have to pay the corresponding price. The king's life is the most precious thing in the world. There's nothing more suitable than this to pay for it. I was wrong about you, Noah Doria." Undoubtedly, Liliana had put on her clothes, but she was still hugging her chest with tears in the corners of her eyes. "I thought you were a decent person, different from other kings. I didn't expect you to hide your beastly nature and want to violate your own knight. Are you such a person?" "Wait," Noah hurriedly corrected her loudly. "When did I violate you? Isn't that obvious?" Erica forced a smile. "You violated the most important thing to a girl. Please don't say that, you'll be misunderstood, okay?" Noah's voice was getting louder and louder. "In the end, why did you take a bath so early in the morning? Why are they naked together?" That's something we can't do anything about," Liliana cried out, wanting to cry but having no tears. Erica didn't want to get up no matter how I called her. She even asked me to give her a cup of cappuccino, but when I brought the cappuccino over, this woman with a bad sleeping posture knocked it over and splashed it all over us. In order to buy time, we had to take a bath together. The question is, why did you barge into a girl's room without even knocking on the door?" Erica gave Noah a dangerous smile. "If I remember correctly, even if you're a king, you shouldn't be so rude, right?" I had something important to do." Noah wanted to cry but had no tears. Who knew it would turn out like that? "No." Liliana pointed at Noah with a flustered face, as if she had seen through the truth. "Don't try to hide your beastly nature. It's useless to say anything more." Erica seemed to have been provoked too. "All in all, let me stab you with my sword first, just once." As she spoke, Erica tried to make the Lion King's heart break free from the restraint of Noah's fingers, but she still couldn't pull her sword out. "Come on, I have a fiancé," Noah explained helplessly. "Do you think I'm that kind of person?" Erica and Liliana fell silent at the same time. When Noah thought that Erica and Liliana had calmed down and chosen to believe in him, to his surprise, Erica's and Liliana's rosy cheeks disappeared, only to be replaced by coldness that had never been seen before. "You're right," Liliana said expressionlessly. "You already have a fiancé." Erica took back the Lion King's heart and left with Liliana, without saying a word. Seeing the 2 female knights leave like robots without saying goodbye, Noah stared at their backs and sighed. Could it be that I'm really a sinful person? Chapter 531. Guinevere. In the hotel restaurant, Noah, Erica, and Liliana finally gathered at the original table. They got along as usual, as if nothing had happened just now. However, after hearing Noah tell them the whole story of his meeting with Guinevere, Erica and Liliana looked at each other in dismay. I didn't expect that such an amazing person would appear in such a place. Erica clicked her tongue, but her pretty face was full of fearless, gorgeous smile as usual. The god ancestor that Princess Alice mentioned is this lady, right? God ancestor, the queen of witches. Liliana's expression was a little complicated. Although she is the distant ancestor of us witches, in terms of existence, she is neither a god nor a human. She came here and sent such an invitation. What is her purpose? Even Lily can't guess the purpose of the god ancestor? Noah looked at Liliana. You and that god ancestor are witches. If you are both witches, you should know something about Guinevere, right? Although we are all witches, that lady was originally the goddess of the earth. Even if the witches' ancestors used to serve the goddess of the earth as witches, in the end, we are just serving them. Liliana pondered for a moment, and then shook her head. Speaking of understanding, as the goddess of the earth in mythology, I believe that many people know about Guinevere's divinity. However, what we need to know now is god ancestor Guinevere, not goddess Guinevere. That's true. Erica nodded and agreed with Liliana. Even if it was the goddess of the earth, now that she has reincarnated and stayed in this world as the god ancestor, we really don't know what that lady intends to do. Hearing this, Noah was speechless. In this world, because the god of disobedience would appear from time to time for various reasons and bring disasters to the earth, people like Erica and Liliana, who grew up in orthodox magic associations, could be said to have a good understanding of the gods. Since even Erica and Liliana couldn't guess the purpose of Guinevere's invitation from her background, Noah, who had only stayed in this world for about 3 months, naturally wouldn't know. In other words, there is no way to get any useful information? Noah scratched his cheek. I thought it would be more advantageous to ask the witch about the witches. Hearing Noah's words, Liliana lowered her head in shame. On the other hand, Erica thought of something and suddenly smiled. No, your way of thinking is correct. Naturally, you have to ask the witch to understand the matters of the witch. While saying this, Erica took out her mobile phone and clicked on the address book. However, that god ancestor is the queen of witches. Although Lily is an excellent witch, in terms of status, she doesn't know the secrets of the god ancestor. In this way, it's clear what we should do. Liliana tilted her head suspiciously, as if she didn't understand the meaning of Erica's words. Only Noah nodded in relief. That is to say, we have to consult those witches who are better than Lily? Hearing Noah's words, Liliana understood. As a prodigy with the rank of Grand Knight, Liliana's talent and strength in the field of witches were top-notch. It was unknown if there were more than 10 witches in the whole of Italy who could surpass Liliana. Of the 10 top-notch witches, Noah only knew that one was the only one he had ever met. Alice. The corners of Noah's mouth slowly rose. Speaking of which, it was Alice who brought Guinevere to me. Among the people we know, no one knows Guinevere better than her, right? That's it. After pressing a few buttons on the mobile phone, Erica stood up from her seat. That princess has now retired, but she still secretly controls the entire Sage Council. She asked the people of Red Copper Black Cross to be the middleman and set up a connection with the Sage Council. In this way, we should be able to contact Princess Alice. After that, Erica directly put the mobile phone next to her ear and walked aside to make a call. With Erica's departure, the scene suddenly became a little awkward. Well, touching his nose, Noah said to Liliana embarrassedly, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. Liliana naturally knew what Noah was apologizing for, and her face turned red again. I know, although you are a demon king with terrifying power, I know very well that you are a very gentle and considerate person. You definitely wouldn't do such a frivolous thing. I was too careless before. I also apologize to you. With that said, Liliana stared at Noah. But Erica is right. As a king, you should pay a little attention to your behavior. No matter how urgent the matter is, I still hope you can knock on the door. That way, you won't see such a disgraceful scene. So, So didn't I apologize? Noah waved his hand and shook his head with a dry smile. I will be careful, please forgive me this time. Forgive? Liliana thought of something and lowered her head. After a while, she raised her head with some determination and looked at Noah. Before that, can you allow me to ask you a question? Question. Noah nodded. Go ahead. Liliana looked a little hesitant, but in the end, she spoke in a mosquito-like voice. I've heard before that you have a fiancé. That should be true, right? Noah didn't expect Liliana to ask about this matter. After being stunned for a moment, he smiled bitterly. It's true. Is it? Liliana's expression became a little forced. She should be a very outstanding woman, right? Instead of saying that she's outstanding, it's better to say that she's naturally by my side. Noah didn't hide anything because of Liliana's performance, and chose to answer truthfully. After all, we are childhood sweethearts who grew up together. We used to be friends, are now lovers, and will become family in the future. It's just such an ordinary development. Is that so? Liliana lowered her head, making it impossible to see her expression. From your words, I can tell that you love each other deeply, right? Deeply? Noah laughed at himself. I only realized later that they had waited for me for God knows how many years, before they finally got my reply. They would even laugh and cry because of my reply, compared to their love for me. My love for them is so shallow, that it makes people want to despise it. Is that so? Liliana didn't know what to say, but then she was stunned, and raised her head in astonishment. Wait, you just said them, right? What do you mean by them? What do you mean? Noah couldn't help but feel puzzled. They are them? What's so strange about that? There are many strange things. Liliana couldn't help but raise her voice. According to what you said, could it be that you have more than one fiancé? Noah just realized how unbelievable his statement was, and his expression suddenly became unnatural. I have two fiancés. Two fiancés? Liliana's expression gradually changed from astonishment to disbelief, and then from disbelief to disbelief. In the end, there was only grief left. I see, so you're this kind of person? Wait, you must have misunderstood something. Noah quickly explained. Although it's a little strange to have two fiancés, but our feelings are real. There's absolutely no falsehood in it. Absolutely. At this moment a voice interrupted. You don't have to explain so desperately. With a fake smile, Erica appeared behind Noah and sneered. We clearly understand that you're still a man after all. You don't have to explain anymore, we understand. No, you don't understand. You don't understand at all. Noah instinctively retorted, but then he reacted. So you've been eavesdropping. Chapter 532. In the end, the fact that Noah had two fiancés seemed to give Erica and Liliana a whole new understanding of their master. And it was a very bad side. No matter what Noah said to Erica and Liliana, the two girls didn't seem to be listening. It was unknown whether it was because they started to despise Noah's character from the bottom of their hearts, or because of some reason that they didn't listen to Noah's explanation at all. This made Noah extremely vexed. In the end, Noah gave up and stopped paying attention to them. After all, Noah did have two fiancés at the same time. Since he could do such a thing, he couldn't blame others for misunderstanding him. Noah also knew that. In any case, no matter what outsiders or the world said, Mira and Lisanna were already Noah's people. Noah had long decided to be responsible for these two fiancés who grew up together with him. Just like what he said just now, they were friends in the past and lovers in the present. In the future, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna would also be family. That was a fact. Therefore, Noah didn't intend to refute them anymore, and allowed Erica and Liliana to think whatever they wanted. However, Noah didn't know if it was just his imagination. Noah felt that ever since they found out that he had two fiancés, and the lucky pervert incident in the morning, the heavy atmosphere that had been lingering around Erica and Liliana disappeared completely. It was like when one was obsessed with whether to eat meat or vegetables at night, only to find that one could eat both together with one's appetite. Therefore, One began to regret the fact that one had wasted a lot of time because of one's obsession. In the end, it all came down to one sentence. Don't guess if you don't understand women's hearts. In short, Noah gave up on guessing. At a certain moment, a letter suddenly appeared in the space in front of Noah, Erica, and Liliana and floated to the table. Seeing this, Noah, Erica, and Liliana's expressions turned serious. Noah didn't reach for the letter. Instead, he looked at Erica and Liliana. Is this a letter sent using the magic of letter delivery? Erica and Liliana nodded at the same time. Then, Erica opened the letter on the dining table. After glancing at it, her expression immediately became weird. What's wrong? Noah asked suspiciously. Is there anything strange? Erica didn't say anything. Instead, she placed the letter in her hand on the table, allowing Noah and Liliana to see its contents. The contents of the letter were as follows. After receiving Miss Erica's contact, I was about to meet with His Excellency Noah, but I was seen by my housekeeper. Then, the housekeeper set up a barrier in the museum, intending to stop me from running out. So please wait a moment, Your Excellency Noah. I'm thinking of an escape plan, and have decided to contact you again in the future. Of course, if the king can come to England and destroy the entire London, I can hold an emergency meeting and swagger out of the museum. From the content of the letter, Noah, Erica, and Liliana could clearly see the excitement of the sender and the joy of the end of the letter, which was just short of a loving heart. Noah, Erica, and Liliana all fell silent. Needless to say, it was easy to guess who sent this letter. However, recalling the elegance and nobility of the woman with the beautiful title of princess, who would have thought that the letter was sent by her? In short, there were too many things to complain about. As I recall, Alice seems to be the princess of some duke's family, right? Noah asked cautiously. The reason why Alice is called a princess is not only because of her family background, but also because she is as noble as a princess, right? There's no need to doubt it, Erica explained without hesitation, as if she wanted to dispel Noah's thoughts of escaping. Princess Alice is related to a great noble in Europe in the past. In addition, she is associated with the Magic Association of the Templar Knights, which is similar to the Copper Black Cross and the Bronze Black Cross, which nurtures the successors of the Templar Knights in the past. In other words, the magic association that nurtures us knights has close contact with the descendants of the Druids. As a result, the noble lady has extraordinary knowledge and wisdom. She is known as the most outstanding noble lady in Europe. She is such a flawless princess. Princess Alice's health has always been poor. After her condition worsened 6 years ago, she withdrew from the position of the chairman of the Wise Parliament and recuperated in a mansion in London, England, Liliana added. I heard that the princess often complains to her acquaintances that she can't go out at will because her family is worried about her health. Speaking of which, last time Alice did say that because of her poor health, she could only come to me in the form of a soul avatar. Noah rubbed his brows as if he had a headache. At that time, Alice couldn't have snuck out, right? That should be the case. Erica shrugged. The enchantment in the mansion mentioned in the letter may be the type that seals the entry and exit of spirits in order to prevent the princess from escaping again. Noah laughed dryly. The image of Alice as a noble lady in his mind began to collapse in Noah's mind little by little, turning into the playful girl who usually wore the mask of an obedient girl. Undoubtedly, she doesn't have to think about how to escape. Noah sighed. Let's go directly to Alice's mansion in London, England. This shouldn't be a big problem, right? Erica and Liliana fell silent at the same time. After thinking about the feasibility, they nodded tacitly almost at the same time. Even if she doesn't use her original body, if she uses spells to create a soul avatar, it will still burden her body. Liliana said, a little worried about Alice's physical condition. So it's a good choice for us to visit her directly. It's indeed worrying. Erica also agreed with Liliana. For the sake of Princess Alice's health, even if it's a little detour, let's go to London, England. I just don't know when the god of disobedience, in Nabali that Guinevere mentioned will appear. Noah patted his cheeks to cheer himself up. Let's hope nothing happens before we come back. There's a branch of bronze black cross in Napoli, Liliana said. I'll ask them to pay attention. Once there's anything strange, they'll report to me immediately. Noah was relieved. However, it's really rare for you to take the initiative to look for news of God. Erica glanced at Noah. I thought that after the past 3 months, God's matter had completely become a taboo in your heart. I didn't expect you to take the initiative to go to the source of the incident this time. Have you finally gotten over it? Or are you too close to Salvatry and infected by the king's battle lust? Liliana said worriedly. I hope you don't become the kind of person who will do anything to make the god of disobedience appear in order to fight God. Yes, just be like before. In the past 3 months, whenever Noah encountered something related to God and discovered that the god of disobedience was about to appear, he would not hesitate to stop it and let the god of disobedience, who should have appeared, return to the myth. Of course, he would also encounter the god of disobedience, who could not be stopped from appearing. At that time, Noah would come to his senses and make a prompt decision to fight the other party. However, God was not so easy to deal with. Even if Noah's own strength could deal with them, the other party was not the kind of person who could be killed easily. Some of them even had the ability to resurrect. Therefore, in the past 3 months, Noah had not succeeded in killing a god. Knowing that these gods were difficult to deal with, Noah really wondered why he was able to successfully kill the 2 highest-level gods at the same time. Sure enough, it was because Welslana and Meckel did not take Noah seriously when he was still a human at that time. They were not like the gods he encountered in the past 3 months, who felt that there was nothing strange about losing to the god slayer, and could escape without hesitation. Don't worry, Noah said such a sentence righteously. I will never become the same kind of person as that idiot. Yes, absolutely. Chapter 533. The origin of Greenwich's Wise Men Parliament was entirely due to the formation of a group of busybodies, which gave rise to its initial form of existence. Magicians, esoteric scholars, fairy doctors, and other people who had a deep relationship with magic. There was a fine line between experts and ordinary scholars, market researchers, priests, monks, artists, capitalists, nobles, royalty, and so on. These ambitious people with ambition, curiosity, and extraordinary wealth gathered together to exchange information and establish a group. This was the origin of the Sage Parliament. Then this group gradually began to accumulate wisdom, and its influence gradually increased. It even established a headquarters in Greenwich, London, and gradually became today's Sage Parliament. In order to promote and assist the brain group of mysticism and magic research, and to accumulate information about the god of disobedience and the god slayer, an organization was established in an attempt to deal with the disasters brought about by these existences. This was the Wise Men Conference of today. When the Sage Parliament was mentioned, the first thing that came to people's minds was not a famous expert from the Sage Parliament, nor was it a scholar with extraordinary wisdom. It was not even the current chairman, but the former chairman of the association, the daughter of Duke Goding's family, Alice Louise of Navarre. She was generally known as Princess Alice, the former Speaker of Greenwich's Sage Parliament, and the current special advisor. There was no doubt that the first thing people thought of was this noblest, most elegant, and most cultured and wise lady in all of Europe. Of course, the place where such a noble existence lived was not a place that anyone could enter. And now Noah, Erica, and Liliana were here. This was one of the few high-class residential streets in London, England. In one corner, there was a luxurious mansion with a vast courtyard, a 4-story tall building and 4 towers. Its appearance was very much like an ancient castle. There were many luxurious houses like this in this high-class residential area. Therefore, the building itself was not too special. However, the owner of this mansion was only a woman in her 20s. She was known to everyone in the magic world as the noblest woman in the world of magic. Noah, Erica, and Liliana arrived at the entrance of this luxurious mansion. They were looking up at the mansion in front of them, as if they were admiring some beautiful scenery, and were about to give some comments. Of course, The conversation between the three of them, who looked extremely relaxed, was not what ordinary people imagined. You can indeed feel the existence of the barrier, Noah said gloatingly. In addition to her poor health, the princess's escape plan is probably still incomplete, right? Unfortunately, the barrier set up here not only to prevent spirits from entering and exiting, but also has defense and alarm functions. It should be used to deal with external enemies such as intruders, Erica commented casually. But it's normal. After all, it's the princess residence. It's necessary to set up heavy defenses. I heard that Princess Alice and the Black Prince are old enemies. In the past, she also joined forces with the current commander-in-chief of the Red Copper Black Cross, Paul, to fight against the Black Prince together. This matter is quite famous. Liliana sighed. If the Black Prince himself came, the defenses here would be as good as non-existent, right? But as the king's subordinate, he wouldn't do something as ungentlemanly as attacking the residence of a sick and weak girl. I don't think this worry is necessary. Erica smiled sweetly, her eyes shining brightly. I think it's not a bad idea if the Black Prince comes to attack this house now. In that case, I, Erica Brantley, the Grand Knight, who inherited Paul Brantley's title of Crimson Demon, can once again write that legendary battle record. In the past, the deeds of Alice and Paul working together to fight against the Black Prince Yarok were indeed quite famous. Because of this, Paul was given the title of Crimson Demon. Now, this title had fallen into Erica's hands as she wished. Because they had become Noah's entourage and Noah's spokesperson in Italy, Erica and Liliana's status in their respective magic associations had soared. They had gone from being popular to being the most popular. Under such circumstances, Erica did not hesitate to ask the Red Copper Black Cross to inherit the title of Crimson Demon, and it was approved without any objections. In the Red Copper Black Cross, only Erica and another respected Grand Knight were competing for the title of Crimson Demon. Therefore, after Erica became Noah's entourage and received the honor of being the king's trusted aide, the title of Crimson Demon fell on her without any objections. With Erica's courage and ferocity like a lioness who was unwilling to fall behind others, it was not surprising that she would have the idea of fighting against the Black Prince Yarok, like Paul did back then, to prove that she had the qualifications to inherit the title of Crimson Demon. Do you want to imitate your uncle? Liliana said to Erica, adding insult to injury. Paul is a paladin, and he can only resist the Black Prince to a certain extent after joining forces with Princess Alice. Erica, do you really think you can compare to Paul? Why not? Erica smiled confidently. Uncle was already 25 years old when he got the title of Crimson Demon. I got the same title when I just turned 16. Many people are still talking about it behind my back. That's just because they can't stand others living too well and are jealous of you. Noah shook his head with a chuckle. Besides, Alice and Mr. Paul can resist the Black Prince Yarok, not in the real sense of a confrontation of strength, but in a certain extent of glorious achievements. Humans have no way to resist a godslayer. Everyone knows this clearly. No one expects you to really fight against a godslayer after inheriting the title of Crimson Demon, so just ignore them. After saying that, Noah looked at the luxurious mansion again. Okay, let's go in quickly. I've already contacted them on the plane. They should have received the news of our arrival, Erica said directly. I'm sure the arrival of the king can still make those who take care of Princess Alice dare not neglect it, right? As soon as Erica said that, the door of the luxurious mansion opened, attracting the attention of Noah, Erica, and Liliana. Taking a closer look, on both sides of the door of the mansion, maids lined up in 2 rows and bowed in this direction. Then, a shrewd woman wearing an office lady's uniform similar to that of a secretary walked out from inside. She was wearing thin-rimmed glasses and had a fierce expression, looking like a strict tutor or butler. This person was the head maid of Alice's mansion. In short, she was someone who worked as a butler, head maid, and secretary. Her name was Elisen, and it was said that she was as shrewd as she looked. However, when such a figure faced Noah, there was a hint of nervousness on his face. I didn't expect the Demon King to come to London in person, and to the Princess Mansion. What a surprise! Elisen said in a trembling voice. You are Lord Noah, right? May I know why you have come to the Princess Mansion this time? Let me make it clear that our sage council will not succumb to the Demon King's obscene power. Hearing this, the corners of Noah's mouth twitched. Even Erica and Liliana turned their backs and snickered secretly. It seemed that from the perspective of the Sage Council, which specialized in the study of god slayers, every god slayer in the world was a cruel and incorrigible demon king. This could be seen from Elisen's performance. I have a lot to say, but it's probably useless to say anything at this time. So I'll simply say it in a way that you can understand. Noah laughed bitterly. Anyway, you can't stop me no matter what I want to do. It's better to be straightforward, and let me meet Alice. That way, I won't raise this place to the ground. Will this make you compromise? Elisen's expression froze completely. In the end, as expected, Noah was granted passage. Chapter 534. Noah didn't know if it was because of magic, or because of the residence itself, but as soon as he entered Alice's residence, he felt like the temperature in the surroundings had suddenly become moderate, just like a summer villa. It was rather comfortable. Under Elisen's lead, Noah, Erica, and Liliana moved to the top floor of the residence. When they arrived at the hall on the 4th floor, Elisen stopped in his tracks, turned around, and pretended to be calm as he spoke to Erica and Liliana. Her Highness isn't usually in good health, so she can't see too many people. Apart from Sir Noah, it's best if no one else enters. Erica and Liliana looked at each other before shifting their gazes to Noah, as if they intended to let Noah make the decision. Noah pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, it's enough for me to go see Alice. You guys wait here. Erica and Liliana finally nodded and retreated to the side obediently, as if they were obedient to his words. In fact, after 3 months of interaction, Noah, Erica, and Liliana were already rather familiar with each other and could be considered good friends. Erica and Liliana usually wouldn't speak to Noah with honorifics. Instead, they treated him as equals. It was only in front of outsiders that Erica and Liliana would strictly abide by the settings of their identities. It wasn't only because they couldn't behave improperly in front of outsiders, but also because they didn't want to embarrass Noah, the nominal owner of the residence. And this behavior naturally made Elisen, who viewed Noah as a terrifying demon lord, fear him even more. His attitude also became much more respectful. He reluctantly led Noah to the door of a rather majestic room. This is Her Highness's bedroom. Elisen's voice was still filled with nervousness. I've reported to Her Highness that His Majesty is here. She is waiting for you inside, so I hope you can be magnanimous and not make things difficult for Her Highness. Seeing that Elisen had completely assumed that he had come with ill intentions, Noah could only laugh bitterly in his heart. For many people, the word God Slayer was a synonym for terror. This was because the God Slayers had the power that humans could not resist. The current God Slayers had all done things that brought catastrophic losses to humanity. It was no wonder that others would call the God Slayers the Devil King. As for the Wise Men's Parliament, which specialized in researching the God Slayer, the horror of the God Slayer could be directly presented to everyone in written form. Therefore, Elisen should have long known about the various deeds Noah had done after becoming the God Slayer, right? For example, he had defeated Tony, Warban, and Luohao. He had even defeated 3 kings of the same rank. Of course, the most important thing was the losses that Noah had suffered in order to defeat these people, as well as the various kinds of destruction that had happened in the past 3 months. As a member of the Wise Men Council, Elisen, who clearly understood how terrifying Noah was naturally worried that Noah's arrival meant that there was going to be another disaster. However, humans could not resist the God Slayer. Therefore, it was completely natural that they would be afraid, scared, and nervous. Facing a member of the Wise Men Council like Elisen, who was deeply ingrained in the horror of the God Slayer, no matter how much Noah explained, they would not listen. In the end, Noah did not explain. I need to talk to Alice about something very important. Noah sighed. So don't do anything like surveillance or monitoring. As long as you can do it, then in the end, everything here will be fine. Is that okay? Yes. Eliason's face was tense. He suppressed his nervousness and then obediently left. Seeing this, Noah also reached out his hand, pushed open the door in front of him, and walked into Alice's bedroom. Upon entering Alice's bedroom, the first thing that entered Noah's eyes was an extremely luxurious bed. Not only was it luxurious in shape and scale, but there was also a veil-like ceiling that fluttered back and forth under the breeze from the window, making a pleasant sound of gauze rubbing against each other. And on such a bed Alice, who was wearing pajamas, had her eyes closed. Her hands were clasped together and placed in front of her chest as she laid on top of it. Strictly speaking, Noah had only seen Alice twice. However, both times, Alice had always had a noble and elegant look, just like a real princess. However, at this moment, the Alice that appeared in front of Noah lying on the bed was not as noble and elegant as before. There was only weakness. Because of her poor health, Alice's pretty face was slightly pale. Although her breathing was stable, it was also very weak. She looked exceptionally pitiful. Coupled with her stunning beauty, it was believed that as long as it was a man, upon seeing this scene for the first time, they would not be able to resist the urge to go over and kiss Alice. After all, the feeling that Alice gave people was too much like Sleeping Beauty. That delicate beauty could make every man's heart ache, and thus have the idea of, if I go over and kiss her, she will wake up. Noah did not have such an impulse. However, looking at Alice's sickly appearance, and then recalling the noble appearance that she used to appear in front of him, even Noah could not help but feel a little distressed at this time. In front of Alice's bed, which was in front of Noah, the space suddenly fluctuated with a spell power, and gradually condensed into a figure. That was Alice, who usually dressed beautifully and absolutely matched the title of princess. However, that was only Alice's spiritual clone. Welcome to my residence, Sir Noah, should I say that? When they first met, Alice used a look of hidden bitterness that she would never have in the past, and stared pitifully at Noah. Undoubtedly, it will be fine to wait outside. I will definitely be able to think of a perfect escape plan to go outside. Now that you are here, I have no excuse to sneak out. Do I go out again? Hearing this, Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. You still have the nerve to say that. Your body is already in such a state, and you still want to sneak out. Of all people to make life difficult for, you just have to make life difficult for yourself. It is also very boring to stay here all the time. Alice was rarely awkward. Someone like Sir Noah who can travel all over Italy all day long will not be able to understand me. It doesn't matter whether I can understand you or not. What is important is whether you can understand your own physical condition. Noah rolled his eyes, walked past Alice's spiritual body, and came to the bedside of the sleeping Alice. He sat on the edge of the bed, reached out, and smoothed a strand of messy hair on Alice's forehead. There are really people who don't take care of themselves. It is unbelievable. Noah's behavior was completely a habit that he developed from taking care of a group of cursed children in the world of Dark Bullet. However, Noah's intimate behavior made Alice a little shy in the eyes of herself. Casually touching a girl's body or something. It is also unbelievable. Oh, is it? Noah glanced at Alice's spiritual body, and the corners of his mouth curled up. I remember that 3 months ago, when I was fighting with Luo Hao, Warban and Doni, I did not casually touch a girl's body, but a girl took the initiative to kiss me. Alice was triggered by Noah's words. She finally recalled this matter, and an embarrassed expression appeared on her pretty face. At that time, I was only using my spiritual body. It was a doppelganger, not the real body, so it's fine. Yes, that's right. That's it. Looking at Alice's spiritual body, who was a little incoherent, Noah suddenly smiled, and the hand that was smoothing Alice's hair on her forehead changed to a state of caressing Alice's pale cheeks, and he said in a mocking tone, "You are right, the spiritual body's words don't count. So let me take away the kiss from the real body. What? Alice's spiritual body was stunned on the spot. Then, in front of Alice's spiritual body, Noah, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, began to lean down and put his face close to the lips of Alice's real body lying on the bed. Huh? Alice's spiritual body began to panic. Wait, Sir Noah, are you serious? Ignoring the panic of Alice's spiritual body, Noah closed the distance between them and kissed Alice's pale lips. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.